consequent management. So in the 2021-22 and 21-22, in the 2021-22 financial years, the entity incurred irregular expenditure amounting to 3.01 million and 6.3 million respectively. These were both submitted to Provincial Treasury on 31 March 2022. The next slide, we are showing a table indicating this history that I've mentioned above, with the opening balance of 124, and then we're having irregular expenditure of 6.3 for 21-22, and then we had irregular expenditure that we had submitted to Treasury of 25.7, and then we had submission 2 of 19.9 million we submitted to Treasury in 2020, and then we had also submitted on the 9th of November the 2021 an amount of 3.01 million, and then we submitted again on 31 March 2022 an amount of 6.3 million. The balance that had not been investigated and which was raised as an issue by AG as well at the end of 21-22 was the 75.5 million. And then the next slides are indicating the update on the 75.5 million. Chairperson, we have just indicated the total amount of 75.5 million, but we have not submitted to the Treasury, to the SCOPA, the breakdown of this 75.5 million. We do have the summarized breakdown if the committee so wishes us to flight. Our apologies for not sending it through in case it is required, but we are just indicating briefly what has happened in this case. The entity has concluded an assessment of the balance of irregular expenditure amounting to the 75.5 million. And the report was submitted to Provincial Treasury on the 16th of February 2023. Treasury is currently assessing this amount for consideration. It was approved by the board for submission to Treasury in the same month before it was sent to the Treasury. The submission 2 that was submitted to Treasury in June 2020 which amounted to 19.9 was evaluated, and 7.01 million was recommended for condonation, and the remainder of the 10 transactions amounting to 12.9 million were not recommended due to the following reasons. Treasury indicated that there was no value for money for 8 transactions. The value for money could not be confirmed due to outstanding payment vouchers, invoices, and other payment documents that could not be retrieved by the ADA. The second reason that Treasury put forward was that consequent management and remedial action was assessed and found not to be adequate. This was also caused by loss of records, and therefore we were unable to identify responsible officials and put appropriate remedial actions. And as well, I must indicate that some of the officials had already left the employ of the ADA. So, sorry, I'm going back and forth now. Okay. Then also, I was just indicating that the entity was unable to provide supporting evidence for the above because there were no records, and there had been numerous attempts to retrieve and recreate files without any success. Also, to remedy the root cause of the lost files, the entity has appointed, in fact, we have revamped our registry. We've got now appointed officials who are strictly now being monitored, and then we are also having a record-keeping policy that has got a file plan. This has been approved, and the registry has been subsequently been rearranged, and there are internal controls in the registry. We also have installed some cameras, and we are limiting access to the registry. And then employees sign out for files. This is so that we do keep the records for the required period of time. The next point is that we also did have a meeting with Treasury in November so that they could assist us in paving the way regarding the documents that we were unable to retrieve. And then they did indicate to us that they would not be in a position to condone any irregular expenditure where they could not see the documents. So that irregular expenditure would not then be condoned by Treasury as per the advice that they were given, but we should still send it through to them. They advised us so that they can have a look at the nature of the irregular expenditure, and then they would then express their opinion to say that due to the lack of documentation, they are then unable to condone the expenditure. Then they did also advise that that irregular expenditure could be condoned internally by the accounting authority, in this instance by the board, if the board is satisfied that the irregular expenditure can then be condoned and deleted from the books of the entity on irregular expenditure. Excuse me. And if they are satisfied that in terms of the regulation, in terms of the framework, that these were satisfied, like the matter was free of fraudulent or corrupt or criminal conduct, and if the matter has fraudulent, corrupt, or other criminal, there is confirmation of a case number, and then providing the necessary documentation that is required for condonation or the removal from the books. Also, this includes that if the institution did not suffer any loss and that the non-compliance has been addressed and that the transactions of a similar nature are regularly reviewed to ensure compliance. So we are then saying that the 12.9 that has not been approved out of the 19 million will then be submitted to the accounting authority in their next meeting, which is scheduled to take place in the first quarter. So we are going to be proving to the accounting authority in terms of the above items or above requirements, so that they can take a decision on whether they condone that this can be deleted from the books of the ADA. And then on Friday, on the 31st of March, we did receive further correspondence on one of the requests for condonation, which was for the 3 million, and then we have been advised by Treasury that 7 transactions were condoned, amounting to 1.7. And then 6 transactions were not approved due to the fact that they could not assess value for money, and that they were not happy as well with the consequence management that had been sanctioned. We are going to be having further discussions with the provincial treasury on this matter to access exactly where we need, what areas we need to improve on so that they can improve this. they can condone this as well. And if they cannot, then we'll bring back to the accounting authority for approval to delete from the books, to remove from the books. As I have indicated, Honorable Chairperson, I've come to the end of this presentation, but we do have a breakdown of the items that we recently submitted to the Provincial Treasury, and if the committee so requires, we can flight that and then send it after the meeting to the honorable members. Thank you, Chairperson. I've come to the end of the presentation.
Thanks very much, CFO. And let me just say that I think we must appreciate the fact that you have rigorously gone through the irregular expenditure in terms of breakdown, applications for condonation, etc. So I think that is pleasing. Of course, the concern is that there's the 6 transactions that Treasury feels. The Treasury does not want to approve on the grounds that you can't show value for money and indicate that adequate preventative action has been implemented. We'd like to hear a bit about that. But before I hand over to members, is there anybody who wishes to add to this presentation from Agribusiness Development Agency or the board for that matter? Any comments? Okay, I don't see any takers. Members, over to you.
Chairperson.
Who is this? Honorable Tar?
No, this is Willis Mtono. Chairperson, I'm sorry. Yes. I moved slowly on this, but I just wanted to confirm that what the CFO is saying is correct, that all these matters that are about the irregular expenditure have been reported to the board, including these issues of condonations that have been sent to the Treasury. No report to Treasury has been sent without going through the board, and we have said firmly that these irregular expenditures must be engaged on by the Audit and Risk Committee, and the current chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, who is chairing in the interim, whilst we are looking for an independent chair, is a member of the board, and that is Mr. Lucky Kabela that I was talking about. We have also said even the internal audit unit must be preemptive, and they must take action to study what the Auditor General's report was about, and to say where did we go wrong, to assist the CEO in the accounting authority and the CFO, and to make sure that we are preemptive on these matters. We do not act only because we are now having the irregular expenditure, but to prevent that. And I'm just emphasizing that point, Chairperson, and I'm hoping that we will get it right over time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mkuno, and really the role of the board is appreciated, because this is what we expect from boards, that you are hands-on and ensure that the entity does what is required to be done. I see the hand of Mike Tar before members come in.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, greetings to the Honourable Matingwan. I haven't seen or spoken to you in years. I trust you well. Chair, my question...
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. My question has actually been answered by your response, because I was simply going to ask about the role of the board in dealing with the various matters before us. And of course, I think you've already answered that. And I trust that there are now systems in place that will prevent this happening in future. Thank you.
Mike. Members? I don't see any hands. If I'm missing your hands, please shout out. Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm down with flu, guys. Please pardon me for my voice and the noise that is on the yard. I'm cleaning my yard, as an old man. That's what I normally do. No, there are three things that I want to comment on this presentation. The first thing is that I love the comment by the accounting authority around the question of the no tolerance stance on the incurring of fruitless, wasteful, and irregular expenditure. This is what we want to see happening. And they know that whenever the AG releases the report, then I will be specializing on those three, because we really don't want to see this thing happening after so many years of the PFMA. That's the first thing that I wanted to comment on. And I also want to commend the ADA for meeting the 31st March 22 the deadline that was put by the provincial treasury on the submission of the irregular expenditure. And when we met with the provincial treasury, we learned about that deadline, and we really appreciate that the entity met it. The last thing that I want to comment on, would want to encourage every government department and the entity to ensure that where the irregular expenditure has been incurred, quick investigation should take place and the responsible officials to be held for incurring that. The problem why then there is such delays and whatever is as a result of the failure of the government departments and entities to investigate irregular expenditure immediately after the issuing of the annual report, as we have been calling as the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. So we really appreciate the stance taken by the board and the officials of this entity, and we hope that we are not going to see the incurring of irregular expenditure in the future. And it takes a lot of time to investigate these things and whatever, rather than prevent it. So we must emphasize the prevention of the incurring of these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi. In fact, one of the issues, that gets reported in the media when there's irregular expenditure, quite often there is a misapprehension, understanding that irregular expenditure actually means there's no value for money, or that funds have not been expended on on what they should have been, etc. So the investigation of irregular expenditure is important, as is the issue of record keeping, because quite often entities and departments are unable to investigate and come up with anything conclusive because of the weakness in the keeping of records. And I think this must be the guideline. But here we are actually pleased because you can see a systematic investigation has occurred and up to date. And we do appreciate that from the entity. Colleagues, are there any other matters? Because I think we cannot take this any further. We will do the Mr. Zulu from the Audit and Risk. I see your hand.
Thanks, Chair. Greetings. Chair, greetings to the members of SCOPA. Honorable members, greetings to my colleagues who are in the board, Matsingwana, long time. Chair, our role our role as Provincial Audit and Risk Committee is to ensure that we give advice where necessary. The issue that gets to be raised by this entity of the records that have been lost suggests that I interrogate it a bit by finding out as to what is the turnaround from Treasury itself. because my expectation is that if there is irregular expenditure in a quarterly meeting of the board, that must get to be reported with financials to say we have incurred so much irregular expenditure, and the board discusses that, and they may say, okay, officials take it to treasury for condonation if they are happy with that on a quarterly basis. So my question is so that I'll make a follow-up at treasury. What is the turnaround? Having submitted, if you have submitted in June last year, how much time does it take for Treasury to come back to you to say you missed this and that, so that we deal with the real issues that are facing us? If it takes long, you will encounter the situation where you don't find records, people have resigned, and so on and so on. The quicker we deal with these issues, the better, because we are able to find out. But if there are delays from the Treasury Department, then let's talk to that if they are. Don't just hide it, because we are here to assist the entity to deal with such problems. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Zulu. I think that's an important point, the turnaround time as well, so that the board can play its role. I think we'll ask for the CFO to give us a response on that one. I'm not seeing any other hands, so I'm taking it that is the question, and then we'll hand over to the entity. Well, whoever in the entity is empowered to answer that question.
The turnaround time on Treasury, Chairperson. Before I deal with that, but I do think that Treasury is in a better position to deal with it. But I would like to clarify the issue of our lost documents. This is because this is old irregular expenditure that we had to resubmit to Treasury. It started in 2010. So when we submitted to Treasury, it had already, a long time had already passed. So that is why we could not find those documents. It's not that Treasury took longer to decide on the matter such that we in between lost the documents. As far as the turnaround time of Treasury, I would not be in a good position to answer that. But what I can say about Treasury is that they keep, once you have submitted, they keep communicating with you in terms of if there are outstanding documents that you need to submit, and there are all those ongoing engagements with them, depending on the complexity of the matters that you are dealing with and your quick response as an entity or department in terms of
that. The sooner, there is a time frame within which irregular expenditure is supposed to be investigated, and unfortunately it was never adhered to. I'm not saying this is you, CFO, but in the past this has been the issue. So obviously documents, etc., become harder to access, and that is the problem. Mr. Zulu, are your issues raised? I don't know if anyone. You see, is there anyone from Treasury who can respond? I think it would vary from department and entity to entity. Eh?
Chair.
Yes, Mr. Zulu.
What gets measured gets done. The board sits quarterly. If the boards receive progress with regards to irregular expenditure every quarter, and the treasurer itself commit itself that we take 6 months, or we take at most 6 months, or we take 3 months or 4 months, let it be clear so that at least we are not going to encounter this. We are having other departments that have similar problems of documents that got lost some time ago, and we cannot justify the irregular expenditure and it be condoned. If we set a time frame, maybe on the side of SCOPA, it could be exceeded, but at least you know that at least after so much time, the matter that has been reported must get attention and must be resolved. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Zulu. I think that's an important recommendation. I see the hand of Matungwane.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just wanted to put members at ease about the board and its functionality, particularly in respect of these matters of irregular expenditure. Ndabezitha, we have made arrangements in this manner because of the amount of work that has come to the fore. We've decided that there are going to be monthly meetings to deal with matters of a strategic nature. These are issues of our programs, which the accounting officer and his team bring to the board. And this is on a monthly basis. We are removing those issues from the quarterly meetings, which are now solely about compliance matters. Because we have taken governance very seriously and we have said compliance issues must be given their own time so that we interrogate them fully. So the reports on all compliance reports are reported to on a quarterly basis, including on this matter of irregular expenditure. As I was saying, it doesn't even come from just management. It comes from an audit committee, which audit and risk committee includes members of the board who interrogate these matters on an ongoing basis, but then bring back to the board a report on a quarterly basis. So the matter that UCFO is raising is true. We are not trying to shift blame. We're not shifting blame, but it is true that the current board, with the current management, is dealing with backlogs of things that happened a long time ago, especially on this matter. There has been many of these issues that had not been attended in the past, but are now getting attended to, and we are getting rid of that backlog. And we want to start from scratch and have a very clean slate from which to work going forward, so that we know what we are accountable for is what happened during our term of office. And that's the approach. And we're not waiting until we have cleared these backlogs. We have started the process. The issue that chairperson you have raised of record keeping, we have emphasized on that matter. And if finances were allowing us, we would have even gone on to an electronic record keeping system. But you know, the entity does not have that amount of money. But the system is now there so that records are kept, because we have emphasized that records must not be kept for a year or so. They must be kept for posterity, because this is government. For us, we may be an entity, but we are an entity of government. And that is what we have emphasized. So I'm assuring you that the board has been seized with this matter and will continue to be seized with this matter, as Undabezitha says, on a quarterly basis. There is no fail. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that reassurance, the chairperson of the board. Colleagues, I think that we have a twofold matter here. On the issue of the time frames and the turnaround, I think it's something that we would need to raise with Treasury, because as is being pointed out by the Provincial Audit and Risk Committee, it would appear that this is emerging in other departments as well. So we would need, I think, Cabo and our team to craft a resolution around that. The next point is that I think we are definitely heartened by the attitude of the board and it's again the entity that no new irregular expenditure has been incurred. It means that you are taking tight control of the reins as the newer board and officials, and the task that's with you, unfortunately, is to clear up the old accumulated expenditure, but we can see the progress. So I think on that note, colleagues, let us conclude this hearing, because we've covered all the issues that need to be covered. There are some outstanding matters awaiting Treasury's attention, and we are glad to see that the board is on this as well as the officials. So we'd like to thank the board as well as the officials led by the Accounting Authority of Agribusiness Development Agency for attending this hearing. There will be some follow-up, but we will not call you to another hearing. What we will do is we will forward communication to you to which you can respond. So thank you very, very much to all of you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Member.
Thank you. Kaba, do we have representatives from the Itala SOC with us, because they are our next entity?
I want to believe so. I think somebody can respond. Yeah, there's Mohammed Gafur.
Okay. Mr. Gafur, you are representing Itala SOC? I can see a hand up. Mohammed Gafur?
Yes. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, I'll be representing Itala SOC with our CE joining. He was meant to join at quarter 2. He will be joining us, but I'll take you through. Also represented here by Itala SOC is the executive in the CE's office, Sabisile Shatwayo. So between myself and her, we will take you through the presentation.
Okay, so before we go to the presentation, let me ask that those of you who are going to be speaking, you take an oath or affirmation to speak the truth. The oath will be I, and you give your name, to hereby swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. If you want to affirm, it will be I with your name, do hereby affirm to speak the truth. Can we let's get that through first?
Okay, noted. I, Mohammed Hanif Gafur, hereby declare that I will speak the truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else who will be speaking?
Sabisile.
Okay, Sabisile.
Good morning, Chair members. I, Sabisile Shatwayo, do hereby confirm to speak the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we hand over to you, we'll ask that you flight your presentation, but let me just summarize the issues that you'll cover, and we have received your presentation. So the issues are firstly on irregular expenditure. We'd want feedback on that. We also would want feedback on the investigations, particularly around the online banking system investigation, which was requested by the South African Reserve Bank. We'd want the follow-up on that. Then we also want feedback on the concern, the material uncertainty about Itala SOC Limited as a going concern. We would also want you to update us on your exemption, your license exemption matter, because there's a court review that you have undertaken. And we'd like you to talk about your material losses and impairments and update us on what is being done to address that. So those are some of the resolutions we want you to cover. There are resolutions 133 that go right through to, I think it's resolution 139, if I'm not mistaken. There are also transversal resolutions around vacancies that we'd want you to cover as well. Okay, so we'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just give me a moment to flight the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair, if you can just confirm that you can view the presentation.
Yes, we can. It's also been emailed to you, members. So if you want to look at it on your gadgets, you're welcome to do so. But it's here on the screen.
Okay. I do see Dr. Vilakazi has just joined us as well. I don't know if you want to have him. He will be speaking quite a bit. So whether you want him to also
take the oath. Yes, please, Dr. Vilakazi. If you can take the oath of affirmation to speak the truth, before we go into your presentation from Itala SOC. Basically, it's I, and you give your name, to hereby swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God, or I, with your name, to hereby affirm to speak the truth.
I, Dr. Thulani Vilakazi, hereby affirm to speak the truth.
Thank you very much. Let's hand over to the presentation then.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'll take you through the first resolution, which is Resolution 133 of 22, which relates to the irregular expenditure. In the financial year 2022, Itala did incur irregular expenditure of 18.5 million, and further incurred, or in the prior year incurred irregular expenditure of 35.5 million, which was reflected in the 2022 financial year, and that related mainly to the banking online system that you referred to earlier. In terms of the progress that we have made, we have set up a complete SCM department, and that SCM is fully functional, as stated as well. There has been 1 or 2 vacancies that we will be filling during this the new financial year, but that shouldn't affect the progress that we have made on irregular expenditure. In addition to that, we have established our own bid committees within the Itala SOC. Previously, we did rely on our group bid committees. Since for the last 12 months or so, these committees have been running and have been fully functional. We have made significant progress by reducing irregular expenditure in the financial year 2023. Currently, our irregular expenditure is sitting at about 3.6 million. Of that 3.6 million, 2.7 million relates to 12 contracts that expired during the financial year. But because these were legacy contracts, we weren't able to renew it in time, and that caused the 2.7 million. So that's the main cause of the current year's irregular expenditure. We have since regularized those by taking these to the committee and either extending those contracts or cancelling those contracts or entering into new contracts during the financial year. So we should see a further reduction in irregular expenditure going forward. The measures to reduce is that we've got a proper contract management function that has been established within the SCM department to identify contracts well before the expiry dates. So we start the SCM process for these contracts that are going to be expired 6 months prior to the contracts that are expiring, and these this will ensure that we will have new contracts or the existing contracts extended before the expiry happens. So we should see a further reduction in irregular expenditure going forward into the 2024 financial year. That's the one on the irregular expenditure. Then in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure and irregular expenditure, I'm just going to ask the C to come on this. This related to the 2 million bonus that was paid previously to an executive at Itala or joining a bonus, and that is a legal process that is currently undergoing, and Dr. Vilakazi can just give us an update on that.
Dr. Vilakazi?
Thank you, Chairperson. The Honorable Madam Chair, we have instituted these proceedings against the former CEO, in terms of the bonus payment that has been that was in our view illegally obtained in terms of that aspect. Madam Chair and members, what appears is that a defendant who obviously lost his position here in 2019 period also requested a roundtable engagement with us to try and resolve the matter, but we are not letting him off the hook in terms of both the civil and the criminal side. for how this matter was actually handled, especially duping the previous board that there were share schemes that yet end somewhere when there was none in terms of the previous employer, which was confirmed by ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just then further on to that, then we go on to the resolution 135, which is on the investigations. Again, I'll just ask the CE to update us on this one, which is the Tech Mahindra one relating to the banking system that we were implementing.
Through you, Chair, the legal review process took place immediately after the Section 7 review of the banks by the Prudential Authority, where we were, Itala in March 2020 was actually asked to stop any engagement with Tech Mahindra. Thus far, as reported, there is on record that we did open a case number 93/5 in 2021, and we also reported accounting authority in terms of alleged fraud and corruption to the Durban Hawks Division in terms of Section 34 of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities. We have also appointed our attorneys to legal proceedings against Tech Mahindra for the alleged fraud. Itala issued summons that were served on Tech Mahindra out of the Gauteng Local Division in Johannesburg High Court on the basis of our argument that the contract was based on false presentation made by the defendants and in fact was, in our view, unauthorized. We then claimed the suffered damages of 35 million, with 27 million being for licenses and the balances for hardware, which is deemed to be legal void and sought to be set aside. The allegations comprise the repudiation of the service agreement and claimed amount totaling 35.7 million. In return, Tech Mahindra elected last year to actually terminate the services as a result of the repudiation. They also then counterclaimed in terms of the contract. We have been advised by our senior counsel that in terms of their claim, they don't have any merits to actually succeed in that claim, given the fact that up to now, as the chair and members are aware, there was no core banking system that was implemented here prior to the tenure of this current management team. Around the 29th of August last year, 2022, Itala drafted a plea and amended the particulars of claim due to actually improving evidence. Currently, we have had a session with particularly the attorneys that represent the Prudential Authority in terms of obtaining key exhibits. Madam Chair, you'll be aware that there was a cyber attack on the 19th of February 2021, which did affect some of the previous records and archives that predate our tenure here as management. But we do have access to those, we're seeking access to those exhibits from the attorneys that represent the BDO. So currently, at the moment, we have a process where the matter is actually at the stage of securing the exhibits so that then the court case can be put in place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, the next resolution is 136 of 2022, which you also raised, which relates to the material uncertainty regarding the going concern of Itala. This is mainly due to Itala working on an exemption notice, as well as the continued losses that Itala is incurring. The current exemption notice expires in December 2023. We are in the process of appointing transactional advisors to assist us with our application for a banking license, which needs to be with the Prudential Authority by the 30th of June 2023, so in the next 2 months. But I'll just ask again the CE just to give us more updates on that as well, and just to address the going concern issue.
Through you, Madam Chair and members and honourable members, we have indeed this year on the 8th of February through our shareholder IDFC, the shareholder resolved that we actually go for the application for the banking license this year. In terms of meeting the deadline on the 30th of June, in terms of the current exemption notice, which is an instrument that is not desirable for a commercial institution such as commercial bank institutions such as ourselves to actually rely on. We have actually put up a number of state of preparedness, but particularly with respect to a number of areas. Right at the top, the IT aspect. Madam Chair, you recall at the previous report we had reported that we are cleaning up and doing a lot of AS1 consolidation of our current IT platforms. That consolidation is ongoing, should be completed by the end of this first quarter, by the end of April this year. And that part of the process is to actually at the same time apply and be a direct clearing agent in terms of the national payment system. What will then do for us, it will actually create the platform for us to be able to increase our chances to actually secure the banking license in terms of Section 12 as well as Section 16. Section 12 is the first step where we just get authorization, and then Section 16 is the step that then is followed by the registering of a bank. Currently, we are also engaging with the shareholder, both the immediate shareholder IDFC and ETA through the Honourable MEC to secure a number of support, both financially and guarantees that are required. There is also an engagement through the provincial treasury, both the PA and also the national treasury in terms of certain guarantees that are required to support us. Our budget, forthcoming budget cycle will be an expansive budget, which then takes into account that all the things that are actually needs to be done prior to us submission, that will be actually delivered, particularly the items on capacity that is required in the IT departments, as well as our operating expenditure, as well as the CapEx items and certain key critical components that had been identified in 2016 as the cause of Itala not obtaining the banking license. So currently, as we speak, we are engaging with our shareholders as well as the Prudential Authority in respect of certain discussions that are taking place in this respect.
Just Dr. Vilakazi, also the chair, before you join, also requested us to just update them on this regarding the legal proceedings that we have against the Prudential Authority.
Oh, yes, yeah. The chair will recall that last year, in terms of the exemption notice that expired on the 30th of June, there was a hiatus period where there was no legal instrument that made us to actually operate. On the 22nd of July, the PA issued a new exemption notice, and that exemption notice was very stringent in terms of its requirements. One of the requirements is that province needs to avail 75 cents for every R1 deposit that is actually mobilized in the public domain, which would require anything to the region of about 2 billion. Over and above that, there would be another 250 million or 15% of risk-weighted assets in terms of the capital adequacy. And then also that these are moving figures, and therefore you would need also to continuously update and come to the level of the requirement. The PA, in our view and the board's view, particularly and the shareholders, was that around the 22nd of June did not actually, around the 27th of June last year, did not come to the party as to what was going to happen with that instrument that they had actually extended for 6 months. And therefore, the hand of the board, now supported by its shareholders, was forced to actually go to court to seek reprieve in terms of the interdict. So the first interdict was not successful. However, there was then Part B, and that Part B is going to review the fact that the argument is that the Minister of Finance potentially can intervene in terms of actually according Ithala SOC Limited dispensation as per Section 2 of the Banks Act. That matter is scheduled to be heard on the 8th of May 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Vilakazi. Then the last resolution is Resolution 138 on material losses and impairments. In 2021 financial year, Ithala wrote off bad debts of 9.2 million due to the irrecoverability of certain loans and that we have advanced. So the update in terms of that is that as of January for this current financial year, we have a return of 3.7 million of a total loan book balance of 2.4 billion, which equates to 0.16% of the total loan book. 3 of these write-offs happened in December and 1 in January. We have post write-off recoveries that we do implement, and this current financial year we actually have recovered 2.1 million of bad debts that have been previously written off. So we are seeing quite a bit of improvements in terms of what we've written off on the loan book, as well as recovery in terms of the recovery from bad debts that have been previously written off. That's our presentation, but you did mention there's a transversal resolution regarding there's a transversal resolution regarding key vacancies. Sorry, but I have not had sight of that one, so we haven't included that in our presentation. But I'm sure that mainly relates to the vacancies, which relates to our CFO position, and I'll just ask Dr. Vilakazi to just talk on that one as well, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. As you are aware, it's been quite a long time since Ithala SOC Limited actually secured the services of a CFO. The protracted nature of this recruitment is largely, firstly, as an issue of the war on talent and the scarcity of these specialist skills, particularly CFOs who have both the financial background as well as experience in retail and banking in general. We made a number of attempts in terms of actually securing the services of the CFO to the extent that I think more than 5 instances where our candidates were actually put before the PA and they could not pass the master test in terms of certain requirements. The PA then suggested to us that we should maybe consider securing the services of a senior auditor with a banking background from one of the top firms in South Africa. We started that process, and only also to be challenged because most of the auditing firms do work for various financial institutions, and sometimes when they actually outsource their key people, they find themselves conflicted that they would not be able then to render services to those particular institutions that were actually done. We did this through obviously a bid process, which did not yield any possible candidates. We then also did headhunting and referrals, which our policy does actually consent to. As we speak, Madam Chair and members, we currently have 2 senior external candidates that we have identified whom we believe meet the criteria. The interviews will be conducted by the latest in a week's time, by the 12th of April 2023. And if a candidate, one of those candidates meets the criteria, we'll then forward the BA20 application to the Prudential Authority, which is an assessment which is required for approval as soon as after the interview. But together with those plans, we also have identified an internal candidate who will be a prospective successor to fill the CFO post the tenure of an interim CFO. And we have had engagements in terms of what type of developments the candidate has attended, external courses as well as exposure internally, which will then mean we would have to consider and submit the same for consideration by the Prudential Authority. Madam Chair, there was also a vacancy that recently came up as a result of the resignation of our head of credit and collections for personal reasons, who had to relocate back to Gauteng. The position became vacant on about 1st of April. We advertised and we obtained about 3 candidates. Madam Chair, we are pleased to say that yesterday one of our candidates has actually accepted our offer, and we are currently completing the BA20 assessment form for approval by the Prudential Authority. So in that regard, we remain strong. And then also that this head of credit and collections positions in terms of our new structure will now, in line with general banking practice, report directly to the Chief Risk Officer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Dr. Vilakazi. Actually, in your written email response to SCOPA, you did respond to the transversal resolutions, and you did cover the issues of the human resources as well, the filling of critical posts. It's still a concern, of course, that 5 of the 6 posts are not yet filled, although we do note that you have them in progress, and we understand also the issue of the skills shortage and stuff like that. But the fact is 5 of 6 are still vacant, although in process. Colleagues, let me open up to you to see whether you want to raise any issues. If I don't see your hands, please shout. I see the hand of Honorable Nkosi. Is there anybody else? Okay, Honorable Nkosi, let's take you for now.
Oh, sorry, Chairperson. I'm muted. No, I said I wanted to make some comments.
Okay, Honorable Nkosi, maybe before you make your comments, let me just take Mr. Zulu from the Audit and Risk, and then we'll allow the members.
No problem.
Mr. Zulu?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to Itala for the report. With regards to the issue of the critical vacancies, this is an issue that as Audit Committee we have reported again and again, even our predecessors reported it. It's a critical matter that needs attention. Thanks to Itala for the attempts that they've made in trying to fill these critical vacancies. But a succession plan is one area that you may consider as well, to ensure that when people resign for whatever reason, you are able to pull from within the pool so that we fill those vacancies on time. We have just been discussing the turnaround time at Treasury as well, to say what's a turnaround time for condoning. That issue also, one of the problems may be that there are not enough people to look at those irregular expenditures and then recommend them for condonation, because there are very few people in that area. So we are dealing with a recurring problem. I would like maybe members of SCOPA themselves, as well as portfolio committee chairs, to raise this issue of vacancies strongly with departments so that the critical vacancies get to be filled on time. And we're going for annual financial statements and annual performance reports. Last year, we were starting to do our work as PAC, but we picked up that a number of departments were unable to spend because they've not employed the critical people in the organization, which is a big problem in a country that has such a high rate of unemployment, and we are unable to fill vacancies as government. It's an embarrassment. That's an issue that we must attend to it, and we must find better strategies to deal with it in such a way that each time a person leaves, at least it doesn't take 3 months to fill those particular vacancies. That's what my contribution to this, but thanks for report. The last question would be, do we have an audit and risk chairperson of Itala in this meeting, so that at least we invite him or her to say some few words through you, Chair? But I'd like maybe so that we start working together in such areas and share experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zulu, for that. I'm not sure if there is the audit and risk chairperson here, but I think in future what we will do is we will ask that the entity brings the audit and risk chairperson or committee member to our meetings. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Zulu. The issue of the vacancies and succession planning. I think our concern here with Itala SOC, before I go to Honorable Nkosi, our concern here is that it has been a long-stated expression of desire in the province that there is a provincial bank. Unfortunately, this has not materialized. And, we've lurched from extension of the exemption to extension of the exemption, etc. And issues like staffing, critical vacancies, uncertainty as a going concern, etc., do not assist the process. I'll call on, I see the hand of Honorable Shinga. Honorable Nkosi, do you want to wait and let Honorable Shinga speak first, or do you want to jump in?
I always get guided by the chairperson because I'm not chairing.
Okay, so let's take Honorable Shinga, and then we'll take you, Honorable Nkosi. Honorable Shinga.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Greetings to you and the honorable members. You slightly spoke on the issues that I had flagged myself. Thank you for the presentation from Itala SOC. We welcome it. My first issue is on the issue that Mr. Zulu spoke to of the vacancy rates, the turnaround there, especially on the senior management. These posts are seen to be very key to the functioning of Itala. So that will, of course, raise concerns. And then secondly, Chair, is the issue of the licensing of Itala SOC. You've just said it now that we can be as MPLs, as politicians, as people of KwaZulu-Natal, have that desire of Itala, and we speak highly of it when we speak to people, especially in rural communities. We always recommend and speak of Itala wherever we go, whether they are people have organized themselves formally or informally in the form of stock fairs. Our entrepreneurs are always recommended to use Itala. So really, presentations like this are really a setback on our side. And you look at the loss in terms of even material that we are looking at, on here in this news. So I wanted to register my concern there, Chair, and agree with Mr. Zulu on the issue of I'm losing the word now, but I wanted to say whenever the next person is going to take over, the preparation on others, so that there is no information or work lost in the process, or even excuses, if I may. Succession, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Chair. The issue of succession. Thank you, Chair. Those were my issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Shinga. Honorable Nkosi, you have been very patient. Let me hand over to you.
That's what it means to be matured. You are always patient. No, I just want to raise 6 issues on the Itala SOC. The first one, I don't know whether I didn't hear the first speaker around the question of the incurring of irregular expenditure. I don't know if I didn't hear him well when he indicated that there will be the reduction of irregular expenditure in 2023-2024. That's what I think I heard him saying. If he said so, and I would want him to know that it is our standing position as the SCOPA of KZN that in 2023-2024 financial year, would want to hear nothing about the incurring of irregular expenditure. That's the point that I want to make. Why I'm saying so is because I have studied that the Public Finance Management Act is a very old act. It was enacted in 1999. For us to fail to meet the requirements of an old act like that sends a very, very bad impression on the ground to our own people. And then it undermines the standing of the officials that we employ in government departments and entities. That's the first point that I want to make. The second one is on the question about the banking license. I would want to find out how many outstanding issues that are preventing us from getting that particular license. I know that we pursued it with vigor in one of the committees during the times of Minister Pravin Gordhan as the Minister of Finance in this province and this country. There was only 3 issues that were outstanding. But that's why I'm asking a specific question as to how many issues that are preventing us from achieving this banking license. That was the second thing that I wanted to raise. The third one is on the 2 million of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And it's an old position that we have made very clear as SCOPA of this province, that in KZN, we want no incurring of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Where it has been incurred, it must be investigated and retrieved so that it comes back to the entity or the government. That's the point that I want to make. I'm quite happy about the stance the doctor was presenting around the question of that 2 million, that they would pursue it until they retrieve it. We're quite happy about that. Then on the debts, the writing off thereof. I want to find out if the real investigation has been made that this person really cannot pay this debt. Because I don't want to hear what used to happen before I joined the legislature in 2009, where it was reported in media that Itala was writing off debts of people who have got capacity to pay. So I just wanted to be sure as to whether the writing off has been followed by, has been following the thorough investigation, so that that embarrassment of the past in Italy doesn't come back. The last point is on the headhunting. Well done, Italy Soc Limited, for going that route. For you to make 5 attempts without embarking on the headhunting, it wasted a lot of time. That's why I then want to indicate to you that we are quite happy that you have gone the route of headhunting. But Zulu and Honorable Shinga mentioned this. I really don't know what has gone wrong in our government. Why the issue of succession plan is not pursued. We know of many, many successful institutions is that they build the capacity from within. And then why, when a particular one person leaves the institution, then all of us will have the headache of not getting the replacements. Why then we are no longer embarking seriously on what Zulu and Honorable Shinga called the succession planning? Then that thing is the thing that has saved a lot of institutions. Like, for example, if you think about Oppenheimers, why they are not going down and whatever, is because there's a clear succession plan that is taking place in that particular grouping. So thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Nkosi. Before I hand over to Mr. Ta, and I think there's Ms. Pupuma, I'm not sure who that is. Let me just raise a matter here. You see Resolution 134 of 2022, right? Where there's this fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I want to raise this, colleagues, because I think that what we're seeing coming out as a trend is this irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and irregular expenditure that accumulates in the province. And it doesn't seem to be going down. So this entity incurred fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 600,000 in 2020. And then the prior year's fruitless and wasteful expenditure was 2 million, as Honorable Nkosi has pointed out, relating to a bonus that was erroneously paid to an executive. Right now, who paid that bonus erroneously, I don't know, but there should have been some action, I would have thought. And now this money is gone and they should be recouping of the funds. So the Itala received from the defendant, and the attorneys had requested a roundtable meeting to resolve the matter. They were awaiting IDFC to provide the agreed dates. So we then asked for progress in this matter as SCOPA. Right, and our response is Itala hasn't received a plea from the dependent. The attorneys for the dependent have requested a roundtable meeting to resolve the matter, and IDFC Legal continues to engage the attorneys and are waiting a date from the advocates. Basically running on the spot. It's no different from what we heard last year, and that's my concern. And that is how your irregular expenditure, all these things, your fruitless and wasteful expenditure accumulates. Rather than they be recouping where funds have been lost, they just add on, because you have to keep paying attorneys and lawyers and what have you to engage, and nothing seems to be done. So really, I don't think this thing is being given the seriousness it merits, particularly from an entity where there are concerns about its viability, right? So that's my one issue. The second issue that I wanted to raise is around the material uncertainty of ITALA being a going concern. We haven't really had feedback, but there has been a decline in customer deposits in this entity. And really, this entity, what we would want is for it to serve the people of the province. So the decline has been from 2.58 billion in 2021 to 2.47 billion as at March 2022, a drop in customer deposits. This is a worry, colleagues, because it means that your investors, they may not be big people, but they are putting their money where their mouths are, and they're not putting it in ITALA SOC. So that is a worry. Then the losses and impairments, which were covered up to a point, but the issue is the license, which has been going on and on and on. And really speaking, I don't know. I don't know whether one should be optimistic or not. Because, you look at these other factors, it is really worrisome. So I'm seeing the hand of Mr. Tar, and I'm seeing a Punzi Pupuma. I'm not sure who this is, but I'm sure we'll be enlightened. Let me take Mike Tar first, and then some clarity about who Pupuma is and whether the oath has to be taken in that relation. Mike Tar?
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'd actually like to add on to what you've been saying yourself, Chair. And coming from the Provincial Audit and Risk Committee, I would just like to talk about or get some sort of response about the environment, the risk environment in which ITALA operates. For example, Chair, they operate in an environment that's very heavily banked. Capitec, Discovery, Investec, I can go on and on and on. They also tend to operate at the high risk end of the market. I think they do. You yourself, Chair, have raised the issue of the license, the issue of vacancies, and the issue of perhaps the going concern. And I would just be interested to hear what ITALA have to say about the risk environments in which they operate and how they see themselves working through that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Pupuma, I'm not sure. Oath.
She's the official of government, ma'am.
Who is this, Honorable Nkosi? Sorry, Ms. Pupuma?
Yeah, no, I was clarifying Pupuma is an official of government.
Official of government?
No, Madam Chair. This Pupuma is not the one that is working at ETIA. This Pupuma is the one that is chairing the ITALA SOC board.
Ah, okay, fine. Chairperson. All right, fine. Come in.
Yes.
All right.
Madam Chair, greetings to you and the committee. I will start with the license issue that to clear the way forward. IDFC had authorized us to apply for a banking license. And in terms of the current exemption notice, we're supposed to apply for a banking license before the 30th of June, 2023. So ITALA SOC board have resolved to submit a banking license by the 15th of May, 2023, and applying for a license for a commercial bank. But there are impediments that need to be addressed, and IDFC is actually addressing that. And that is in terms of the legislation, FMA, which is the Financial Matters Amendment Act. The province cannot or is not allowed to own a bank. So they are working on around that act so that we would be able to submit the banking license application by the 15th of May. The succession plan issue is key to us. And normally in a banking environment, I come from that, you don't go outside. You always have your own succession plan. That is, people, you grow your own timber. But what we have done at Itala, we have looked at the operating model. The operating model was not designed to facilitate that succession plan. So what we have done, we have changed the operating model. We have got a new operating model. And for the first time this year, starting from the 1st of April, Itala is operating really like a bank, not a department of IDFC. And obviously, flowing from that, succession planning is actually going to be easy because we have got enough manpower, we have created enough posts, and so that we can actually embark on a proper succession planning. We have been doing succession planning. The head of HR is an internal timber. We have actually just appointed a head of operations, which is a lady that have been groomed inside. We even went outside and brought in people to coach and provide some skills within the Itala senior people that we want to make executives. So I wanted to just come in there, and I will allow Dr. Vilakazi to talk about the operational issues. Regarding the risk environment, yes, it is true. We are operating at the end of the market, but we have been brought in some bankers that are actually helping us. One of the issues that we have included in our budget this year, we have got an expensive budget so that Itala needs recapitalization so that we can actually get out of the loss-making environment. So by the year 2024, we are investing. 2025, we'll be reducing the loss. And 2026, hopefully, will be the first time that we declare a dividend to the government. So the risk environment is under control. We have actually budgeted to purchase tools that are actually required to be able for us to manage the risk. With regard to the reducing deposits, unfortunately, the Prudential Authority have actually barred us from taking deposits from our sister companies that are operating within the ATS stable, and we were instructed to actually send back about 175 million in deposits so that they are comfortable with that we should operate at the end of the market. But with the banking license, we should be able to pick that one up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks very much to the chairperson of the board. I'm not sure if we really have some comfort, right? This license thing is really the concern. And, you know, the fact that the entity posted a 52 million loss March 2022, the fact that Sasria only paid 1.8 million of your 13.7 million claims due to the, the riots and stuff like that. These are all concerns about the ability of this entity to be a going concern. But colleagues, be that as it may, I think that we will have to take appropriate resolutions in this regard. We'll obviously be on you.
Chair.
Who is the speaking, please? I'm not sure.
It's Honorable Mchali, Chair.
Honorable Mchali, welcome.
No, thanks, Chair. Just a few minutes of your time to add on what you've just said, including the issue of the license. I think we must really urge the Itala to understand where we come from about the issue of them getting the license and the time frame that it has taken, which amongst other reasons is that we've seen it as a vehicle that is to assist those who come from, firstly, poor background, the working class, and those who are from a previously disadvantaged past. And it's the only weapon that we see that has a possibility of changing their lives. And any delay, it delays transforming their lives. You have raised the issue of the decline, and I was hoping they were going to respond in that, in telling us whether there is any plan at hand that seeks to attract the market, but also that seeks to define Itala as a good bank to go to for our customers, for our people. But the second element for me is in line with how far, including how far do they go even on the entrepreneurial side that seeks to address in terms of attracting those who must ask for funding. Yes, we accept that in terms of the risk, they ought to be different from the big banks, because for them, they should be, lack of a better way, to be a bank that is biased to the poor, that is biased to the working class. And with that in mind, surely there ought to be a mechanism that the bank, in responding to what you had questioned, Chair, that seeks to say these are mechanisms that we are applying to mitigate the risk, but also to mitigate the distance that we find ourselves in between. I honestly don't buy the notion that says they're in a competitive space. Look at Capitec, how it grown. When it first came in, it was being seen as just the small banks. We're not saying Capitec doesn't have its own challenges, it does. But look at how it increased its numbers. And look at how it became more of the only alternative option from your big banks into how many people, in particular the poor people of our country, who decided to utilize it. So there's the notion of us being in between space. Look at how many people who are still struggling to get financial access in terms of big business or in terms of business on its own, whether I was speaking about SMMEs, the entrepreneurs, young people who come up with new initiative, the innovation side of things, but still find it difficult to get access to banks. Now, for me, really, we ought to begin to say, does the bank, Itala, begin to look closely in terms of their strategy, responding to all these things that I've been saying? But I still want them to probably respond to what they raised, Chair, in particular on what is it that they're doing in dealing with the decline. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Charlie. You've actually raised valid issues. You see, for me, right, they've listed here the 7 performance standards to fulfill the exemption notice standards. And of those, 2 of the key ones are not fulfilled. For example, the target is to remain profitable at all times. That's number 4, right? But when you go from a loss of 31.6 million to a loss of 52 million, it's a problem. Then the cost to income ratio of not more than 78%. They go from 121 point, it's still in the red, although it's 121.4% to 117. And then the fact that the losses on the loans and advances, right? People will not put their money into an enterprise where there's no profit, especially in times like this. So these are the concerns. And I think that the entity must take this very, very seriously, because it's been a very long time since we've been hearing about the application for the license, and these exemptions have been going on and on for too long. So I think, colleagues, on that note, it's not the best of notes, but I don't think there's anything more we can say right now. We will have the relevant resolutions. We will follow up on this, because I think this is very serious. And I think the department needs to exercise a closer working relationship with this entity to bring it up to speed. I think on that note, colleagues, let me close this hearing with ETIA and with Itala Society Limited, and we'll move on to Itala Development Finance Corporation. Thank you very much to the Accounting Authority, the chairperson of the board, etc. of Itala SOC. We can release you now. It's not been very happy.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Cabo, is Itala Development Finance Corporation with us?
Yes,
Honorable Chair, we are here. We are here, Honorable Chair.
All right. Ms. Bengu, is it? Let us welcome you.
Yes.
The last time you were saying that, how could I leave without asking you a question? so let us welcome you. All right. Chairperson of the board and of Italian Development Finance Corporation, as well as the accounting authority and your team, let's welcome you. And let me ask that the accounting authority and your team, whoever's going to speak, could you please take the oath or affirmation to speak the truth before we proceed?
I, Pearl Bengu, swear that I will speak the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. And Chair, just to advise that I've got 3 acting CFO and 2 other members. They will also take the oath now, so that when they ask questions, if they answer any questions, they've already taken the oath. I will soon give over to Farana, who is an acting CFO, to take the oath, and then she will take us through the presentation as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's fine.
Good morning, Chair. I affirm to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Farana.
Good morning, Chair. I am Amanda. I affirm to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Salma Khan. I affirm to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thanks, Salma. The officials. All right. Then, without further ado, let's just ask that you flight your presentation. And while you are doing that, let me just go through the issues. The first one is on internal control deficiencies, and here in particular, it's a repeat finding, so we'd like to see that this is being addressed. The second issue is around the irregular expenditure, where the balance in prior years had not been condoned, and for the 2021 year, it was 22.4 million. For 1920, it was 23.2 million. So that's prior year's irregular expenditure. Then the issue around Intingwe T, material impairments and performance audit. Remember, this one was around the issue of that loan, where and the dispute. It was an outstanding loan of 65 million, and there was a dispute about payment and shares and valuation. Then your impairment losses, right? Non-performing loans. We'd like to hear what your turnaround strategy is to address this. It is a major issue, and also we'd like to hear your turnaround as well as other steps that you're taking. Then there's investigations. You have provided us with the responses, but we'd like to hear from you as well. Let me hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair.
Authority in your team.
Thank you, Chair. I will be taking you through the report on IDFC's responses on the 5 resolutions. The first one dealing with internal control deficiencies in the preparation of the annual financial statements. We report that we have appointed an IFRS technical consultant who has assisted us to review the financial statements. And there's also transfer of skills that's taking place to IDFC finance staff. In addition to that, there is continuous training that is taking place. In January, staff attended training with SAICA. Also, clearance of the issues that were raised by the AGSA is continuing. We report on that monthly and quarterly to the governance structures. The annual financial statements are also being reviewed by management and internal audit. And then lastly, we are engaging with the AG on any unusual or large transactions that have been incurred in this financial year. In terms of the second resolution on irregular expenditure, maybe if I can just go to the page that talks to the latest update on this matter. And to say, first of all, that we haven't had any new irregular expenditure in the last 3 financial years. So what we're dealing with here is old items that were raised prior to 2019. The progress so far, there were submissions of R1 million, 1,042,000 that were submitted to Treasury in December and then resubmitted in January. So we're waiting a response on those items. Then there were a further 3 submissions to the value of 464,000 that were approved by the IDFC board for removal from the register. And then just to say that the work continues in terms of the determination testing in the 4th quarter. And there is a plan in place whereby irregular expenditure of 17 million rand is being investigated by SAPS because they are criminal in nature. Yeah, I think that's all I can say on the irregular expenditure, but it is work in progress. On the third resolution regarding Ntingwe T and how the loan account between IDFC and Ntingwe will be repaid or recovered. So there were some action items before we could get to the valuation, which related to the preparation of the annual financial statements. So we have now prepared the financials from 2016 to 2022, and these are now ready for audit. The audit has commenced in March 2023, and thereafter the valuation process will commence. Then moving on to the 4th resolution on impairment losses. As these were reported by the AG in the 2022 financials, we had impairments of 392.5 million for business finance loans and 237.01 million for properties debtors. Our response, just looking at the latest updates. So business finance has 5 key drivers to address the impairment losses. The first one was talking to acquisitions. So for the 2022-2023 financial year, 690 applications were received to the value of 304.5 million. Sorry, not received, were approved to the value of 304.5 million. On the aggressive collections drive for the 11 months up to the end of Feb, IDFC has collected 157.145 million against a target of 197.5 million. On the restructuring drive, 12 accounts with a balance of 43.15 million have been restructured. And with regards to write-offs, 38.9 million has been approved by the board for write-off. The last drive from business finance talks to expediting legal recoveries. And on that one, we have collected 37.283 million through the legal recovery process. On properties, as of the 31st of March, we had arrears of 209 million, of which 122.3 million was in the legal recovery process. For the period up to February, we have billed our tenants 847 million and collected 792, which equates to 93% collections. There are some write-offs that are in the process of being prepared to go to board, amounting to about 30 million rand. And then the last resolution dealt with investigations. So there were 20 investigations for the period 2020 to 2022. Of the 20, 13 have been completed. 4 are in progress. 1 matter is finalized in Q4, and 3 are expected to be finalized in Q1 of 2023-2024. And those 3 are planned to commence in. No, so there's a further 3 that are planned to commence in February 2023 by external service providers. And on the next 3 or 2 pages, we've just provided the details of those investigations. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Colleagues, let me open the discussion to you, unless there's anybody else who wishes to add into this matter from the board or the officials. Okay, colleagues. If I don't see your hands, please shout. I can see silence, hear silence here. Not sure what's going on.
My hand looks up, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Nkosi, proceed.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think I've got only two issues that worry me on the presentation and also outside the presentation. The first one is on Tingwe T loan or money that must be recovered from there. I just wanted to find out, according to Itala, do you believe that Tingwe has got capacity to pay? That's the first question. Linked to that one, I'm aware that Tingwe is to be transferred to ADA, if I'm not mistaken. What I'm interested in is to find out on the share of the problems of Tingwe that were directed to be resolved by Italy, as to whether you have done so. That's the second question linked to Tingwe. Then the other one is on the 30 million write-off. I want to find out if we have exhausted all avenues before considering the write-off of the whole 30 million. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Nkosi. I want to also just acknowledge that the entity has not incurred new irregular expenditure, so that's positive. And I want to echo what I said earlier on when we met with the Agribusiness Development Agency, that the sooner the accumulated irregular expenditure is investigated and either condoned or written off or whatever, the better, because it clears the books. So I think you've started or you're progressing in the right direction, but there needs to be some speed around this. For example, I am concerned about the 17 million that is being investigated by the South African Police Services, and obviously we would want to get updates on that, because that 17 million sitting somewhere, which needs to either be to be addressed. Then your material impairments are a concern, because it amounts to 392.5 million, and these are outstanding debtors and tenants. This again can pull you down. And of course, these 6 outstanding investigations, as per your response to us, were to be completed by February 2023. We'd need some update on that. I can't see any other hands, so let me hand over to the entity. I'm handing over to IDFC to respond.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning again to honorable members. Chair, I will take some of the questions. I think the ones that with calculations, my CFO will come in. Under the Ntingwe, we still do believe that Ntingwe has capacity. Remember Ntingwe T, when it was still working very well, it was even sold at Woolworths, and we still wanted to really make sure that we resuscitate the company to, make the tea. I think it was the problems were more internally, but something that DART has come to us with now, they have written us a letter, because they also believe that there is money that Ntingwe, they do believe that Ntingwe Ntingwe would be able then to make some money. They wanting it to have its own board. They have that request they've given to us so that they have people that are expert to run the company so that they can manufacture the tea, and the tea's got they already have some people that are interested to take KZN outside the country as well. Then they will have some exports of the tea. So we still are there, we're hanging on, we still want to give it a chance, maybe to be quite straightforward about it. And then about the irregular expenditure, we are trying our best. We have a special team, a special task team that's got terms of reference and it's got very stringent timelines that are working on those irregular expenditures. I think in most of the time we have sent to Treasury, and then Treasury in some areas, they come back, but we definitely would want to deal with this irregular expenditure, making sure that we don't incur any irregular expenditure again. I think with those questions, I will step down there and then on the 30 million, we have definitely exhausted all avenues. There's quite a lot of tentative, write-offs that we're working on, so that we are aware that it was a problem during COVID where people never came back. Some of the businesses were closed, and we're trying then to make sure that those people haven't opened businesses somewhere else. But to be, quite honest, we all are aware of the economic situation. Most of the people have never opened those businesses. So just to make sure that we'll never get that money again. And then we are definitely making sure that we exhaust all the avenues that we are supposed to go through, because as a DFI, we cannot just write off. So we definitely are sure of the 30 million that that is the money that we will never recover as IDFC. So I will give over to Farana about the impairments. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Bengu. Farana?
Yes, Chair. I think on the impairments, it was just a comment from your side in terms of concern on the high impairments. So I don't really have any response there, except to say that we are working on all of those action items, as we've mentioned. With regards to the investigations, maybe I didn't say it correctly, but there are 3 that are expected to commence in February 2023. And there are 4 that are in progress, of which 3 are expected to be completed in the first quarter of the next financial year. Yeah, so they were not planned to be completed by February 2023. Just to clarify that item.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, through you, just to add on the impairments, as the new IFRS standards we are using now, as we write in or we take up any loan, we are supposed to show some percentage of impairment, which means as we grow our book, we will grow the impairment. It's a new IFRS standards as well. So our impairments will always be there until we write off. But, it's something that we'll have to live in, because the new IFRS standards are actually dictating to us that even if the person hasn't defaulted as yet, you have to make sure that you make that allowance, that there might be a percentage of that amount that would be bad debt. So, yeah, our impairments then will always be there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. I think what it does is it shows what your risk is. And I think that's an important thing, so that as an entity, you're aware of, potential risk that you may be facing. Okay, colleagues, I don't see any other hands. And really, in terms of what has been presented to us, the entity is addressing the matters. The repeat finding, we'd like it to stop being a finding. So let's hope that works through. And we do commend you for the fact that there's no new irregular expenditure. That is a big plus. It means you are taking things in hand. The investigations, well, we will have to track that. and we've noted what has been said about the material impairments. So, colleagues, if there are no other matters, I think we can release this entity because there is progress that is occurring here. Is that okay, colleagues?
We agree with you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you to the honorable members, and goodbye.
Thank you, Ms. Bengu. I'm sure I'll have another question for you next time, but thanks for attending.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Bye to you and your team. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, our next entity, I think you take a 5-minute break. Cabo, it's Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife. Can you just make sure that they're all here? Colleagues, you have a stretch break for 5 minutes. It's 11:02 now. 11:07 is when we'll start with Ezemvelo.
Yeah, we're going to 5-minute tea break. Hey, we're going to 5-minute tea break. Tea break. 5 minutes tea break.
Colleagues. Hi, colleagues. Hi, everyone. Kabo?
Yes, sir.
Kabo?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi, Kabo. Is Ezemvelo with us?
I want to believe so. Let me check. Because I saw someone earlier from Mozambique.
I can see a partner in crime, which is
Good afternoon, Chair.
Honorable Lydia Johnson. Who was that who just greeted?
Mr. Muller.
Ah, Mr. Muller. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair. It's the acting CFO at Ezemvelo.
Okay, fine. Anybody else from Ezemvelo, Mr. Muller?
Just give me 1 second, Chair, just to confirm. I've got the CEO in the office. Let me just confirm. Okay, I see he's just waiting in the lobby at the moment.
Okay.
He was being admitted at the moment.
Chairperson Ntsikelelo Dlulane, also from Ezemvelo.
Okay, Mr. Dlulane.
Chairperson.
I think CEO should be in now.
Okay. All right. If we've got the key players here, we are ready to start with Ezemvelo. We'd like to welcome Ezemvelo. Who is here from the board? I'm sure I saw Honorable Johnson here. Yes. Not sure who else from the board is here.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm the only one representing the board as per the invitation. Good morning.
Fine. Good morning, my sister. Right. Colleagues, this hearing with Ezemvelo, before we go into the responses to the resolutions, there are 12 resolutions, actually 9 specific to Ezemvelo, functioning, etc., and 3 transversals. Before we do that, let us just get the officials who are going to speak to take an oath or affirmation to speak the truth. The officials who are going to speak. Can we start from one side? I can. Okay, let me just call. Mr. Muller, will you start? Yes.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Honourable Chair and Honourable members and colleagues. I swear to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. I can also see, I think Mr. Mkhize there, the Accounting Authority.
Greetings, Chair and the members and the chairperson of the board. I swear to speak the truth and only the truth in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dlulane, will you be speaking as well? If you are, you'll need to take the oath of affirmation.
Chairperson, just in case I'll need to respond, I Ntsikelelo Dlulane swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who might speak? Okay, I think we are covered. The chairperson of the board, you do not need to take the oath. All right. So in terms of Ezemvelo then, the resolutions we'd want you to cover are resolutions around your forensic investigations, the concern that we have about your financial sustainability and your viability to be a going concern. There's an uncertainty around a land claim, the future outcome of that. Then in terms of your rationalization with a component of the Natal Sharks Board, tell us about that. Then the material misstatements that have been that have occurred repeatedly in your and picked up in your audit outcomes. Big concern for us with Ezemvelo is your compliance with legislation, particularly procurement and contract management, where there's repeat offences. Your internal control deficiencies, your findings on compliance relating to revenue management, and then your irregular expenditure, right, which is in the 2022 period stood at 53.63 million, but accumulated prior year's expenditure of 41.59 million, which has not yet been condoned. Then you've got, I think, at least 106 posts or something like that that were approved. We want to know about the filling of those. Your compliance with human resource management matters, that's the performance agreements, etc. And then the vacancies in senior management and critical positions, which is actually linked to filling of critical posts. So those are the issues. If you can flight your presentation, we have received your responses. Members have had them emailed, but I think for convenience of the hearing, if you can flight that presentation, it will help. So I'm handing over to you, to the entity.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We, as you have indicated, we've got a consolidated presentation that is responding to all the resolutions as stated by the chairperson. Mr. Muller is going to be flighting and leading in terms of making the presentation on behalf of the entity covering all the aspects. As Mr. Muller is flighting, I think it's important, Chair, that I indicate that with the appointment of the new board of Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife, and also the MEC, Honorable Duma, taking a decision to second myself as the acting CEO, there has been the number of decisions that we have taken to make sure that we turn around things at Ezemvelo, as that will be demonstrated by some of the responses to this meeting. So with those opening words, I would like to hand over to Mr. Muller to just take us, noting that the committee members have read the report, but I must also indicate that since we submitted this report on the 8th of March, there are some updates that will verbally brief the committee on. Over to you, Mr. Muller.
Thank you, CEO. Can I just confirm the presentation can be seen?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you, Chair. That's just an overview of the presentations as you have indicated in terms of the number of resolutions that we do have. Going through to the first one being Resolution 121 in terms of forensic investigations. With regards to the response, we've got the progress report on the outstanding matters from 21-22. And in terms of a table form, we've then articulated the following matters. Those that are under investigation, matters that have been referred to the OTP, and matters that have been concluded in the 21-22 financial year. So the table below then indicates, in terms of the next 3 slides, all the investigations per the case numbers, the allegations, and then the progress to date in terms of each one of the forensic investigations. Chair has indicated that I think we take it as being read, so I won't go through line by line on each of the investigations, but I think if there's any questions, we can then take them as per normal at the ending. So there's 3 slides in terms of all the investigations. So the first ones are matters under investigation. That list of 9. We then have the matters referred to the Office of the Premier, and then finalized matters for implementing recommendation at the time of the SCOPA resolution as well, in terms of those investigations. That's the 18 investigations that we currently have underway. If I can then go on to the going concern, which is resolution number 122. This was then disclosed in the financial statements as note 26. There are material uncertainties existing, and the plan to address the financial performance and cash flow challenges. In terms of this, we've raised our financial situation with ETIA and Provincial Treasury, and I think as per this, we're indicating that a formal submission to ETIA regarding the 23-24 budget and the shortfalls have been made. This was then submitted to ETIA in early February on the 7th of Feb, indicating the shortfall that we would have for 23-24. Just to add on, one of the main impacts that's resulting in the shortfall in terms of our budget is the impact of that COVID has had on our tourism income. Just quickly, if we look at the 2019-20 year, which was the last year of COVID, and you increase that by approximately 5%, where we should be today and where we currently are, there's a difference of about 75 to 80 million in terms of revenue. And that's impacting the budget, seeing as we have a balanced budget and expenses then increase with inflation at the same time. So that's one of the major difficulties in terms of currently the budget and the going concern situation with Izimvelo. At the same time, we're now focusing on our own generated revenue to increase that as well. So we've highlighted various plans in terms of increasing our revenue. We've got a reviewed and developed our 5-year sales and marketing strategy with then implementing identified marketing plans, and we're indicating the activities that we're then doing in terms of this marketing plan, and obviously and also then marketing camping and glamping in terms of the Black Diamond market. And we've introduced a Black Friday special and the specials that we are now doing. So we're trying to actively market to increase the numbers that are coming in since the impact of COVID, and we are seeing increases that are coming through the gates, especially in terms of camping as well. In terms of the next 2 slides is just indicating all the various other initiatives that have taken place, and that we are currently working on in terms of the commercial services contracts, in terms of going out to the market to get a better yield, in terms of grading of the resorts to 3-star grading as per our plan, reference for the tariff committee in terms of reviewing the tariffs, reviewing the various policies and updating them accordingly, authorized vacancy and critical positions that impact the commercial services, opening of Mike's Pass for off-road 4x4 driving, which is in Tadima, the continuous implementing of this annual sales and marketing plan, having pop-ups in malls and marketing our facilities aggressively, seeking partners with other stakeholders within the marketing to try and drive our marketing as well, working with IT to improve connectivity, which is currently underway across the resorts, customer retention management system to monitor and manage guest feedback as well, bringing back offline units in terms of trying to identify funding. We've got the 4% of our subsidy that's then going towards maintenance of our facilities, increasing revenue from hunting. And we've also then identified our top 6 resorts, and we try to focus on them together with the commercialization strategy also once it's finalized, and then also going through fundraising activities as well to try and receive more funding in terms of critical areas. The next resolution is resolution 123 in terms of the uncertainty relating to the land claims. This is then disclosed in the financial statements under note 24, and the AG then also highlight that in their financial statements. Just in terms of this, all land claims are dealt through the Land Claims Commission, which is a statutory body in terms of the Restitution of Land Rights Act. Izimvelo is not involved in that process. We provide the relevant information. We then get notifications which include the descriptions of the land to the Register of Deeds to record such declaration. It should be highlighted that there's no major risk on the side of Izimvelo in terms of this, because it is dealt with by Department of Land Reform. In terms of Section 42 of the Act, there's not much chance that the land will actually be given back to the land claimants. In terms of the Act, we then have the authority to enter into management, so the delegation of powers by the management authority to the other party, and then the apportionment of any income generated from the management of the protected area then goes to the benefit sharing between the parties. Currently, we are using this to mitigate the risk in areas where these have been concluded. Currently, the land claims that are registered with the Commission relate to Shishlui, Mfolozi Park, Itala, Ndumo, Tembe Elephant Park, Vergelegen Nature Reserve, Wienen, and Ukuslamba Drakensberg World Heritage Site. Since the land claims are promulgated as protected areas, as indicated, the likelihood there is no chance really of the land being handed over to the claimants in terms of Section 42. So any settlement that is reached is likely to be in the form of a compensation, where the onus is on the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform to settle the claims. Therefore, there's no liability to be raised in the books of Izimvelo, as there's no risk directly to Izimvelo, be it from a compensation point of view where we have to pay the land claimants, or with the risk of losing the land as well. So the risk is minimal in that sense. And some of these claims have been with the Commission for several years. And there's not much progress that's happening. But again, it's out of the hands of Izimvelo. It's sitting with the Department of Rural Development. And as and when they conclude, we'll then be informed to act accordingly. Again, just to indicate, there is no financial impact on Izimvelo with regards to the land claims. In terms of rationalization of public entities, we have also received the latest update from ETIA in terms of this. So the bill has been certified by the Principal State Law Advisor, and it has been translated into isiZulu and Afrikaans. However, there's just slight amendments that now need to be made in terms of the bill due to the human-wildlife conflict policy provisions, a chapter to be added on local boards, and also regulations on permitting. So that should be finalized by the end of this month. So for the bill to then be finalized and then be submitted. The business case with regards to the rationalization process was submitted to National Treasury via Provincial Treasury. And as soon as that then comes back from National Treasury, the comments will be reported and received by ETIA and then acted upon. The structure has been proposed and is currently drafted by ETIA Human Resources, so it's currently being worked on. The Izambelo KZN Wildlife Bill will be submitted to the Cabinet for submission to the KZN Legislature and will be published thereafter. And the process can only then be finalized once the bill has been passed and National Treasury has approved the business cases, which is currently sitting with them as well. So once all that is concluded, then the process can be finalized. In terms of Resolution 125 of material misstatements, this relates to the performance information material misstatement for Program 5.3, Service Delivery Conservation Management. In terms of the action plans that have been put in place for this, the SOPs for performance against predetermined objectives has been completed by management with the necessary DPME frameworks for performance information. As part of the standard operating procedure, monitoring and evaluation, our M&E now interrogates the portfolio of evidence submitted quarterly as part of the evaluation process. And this has also been now included in the standard operating procedure to ensure that this then happens. Further to that, our internal audit also includes performance information as part of the audit improvement plan to give necessary assurance before information is published and shared with the AGSA to ensure there's no repeat finding with regards to the material misstatements that were picked up by the AG. Adding to that is then the employee there's been consequence management with relation to this misstatement, and the staff has been charged accordingly. With regards to compliance with the legislation's procurement and contract management, the table then indicates the action plans with regards to the findings that have been raised. So the first one was that quotations were accepted from prospective suppliers who did not submit a declaration on whether they are employed by the state or connected to any person employed by the state. The main issue with the finding was the result of not having the SBD4 forms on deviations, and majority of the procurement that was concluded by the field staff. We have now developed a compliance checklist, and all awards now have an SBD4 form, which is a declaration of interest. So that covers the finding that was raised where there's no, where the suppliers do not declare or submit their declarations. We also then verify this declaration against the CSD as part of the SCM compliance check to ensure that bidders are not in the service of the state as well. We have also then revised our policies to address the poor controls with regards to deviations, and the circular on deviation procedures is currently in draft and will be sent out. The process delegations have also been, the SCM process delegations have also been revised, and as per the slide, we're saying in the process of being approved by the board. However, this has now been approved by the board and is currently being implemented. In terms of the next non-compliance, it was that some of the goods and services of a transactional value above 500,000 were procured without inviting competitive bids, and deviations were approved by the accounting authority. This mainly related to laptops, where we were purchasing, where Izambelo were purchasing the laptops as and when required, instead of consolidating the procurement needs of the entire organization. The same was with the herbicides and then the gas. With regards to the gas compliance, AG then indicated that this was a split, so they raised it as irregular expenditure. We have now gone out and done them as a complete procurement plan, and combined them. So we're now going out to tender as a whole. With regards to the laptops, we've gone into the transversal as well, and now we're using the quotes via the transversal contract. We've done the same with the herbicides. As where procurement splits were identified, so we've now gone into the herbicide via National Treasury. And with regards to the gas that was raised, National Treasury were approached and they proposed a single source deviation in terms of that. So in terms of the findings that were identified by AG, we've now cleared as they've indicated that it was a split of bids. We've now gone on to transversal contracts to avoid any risk of these being raised by AG as being a split of orders in terms of the purchases. In terms of some of the contracts, the next finding from in terms of compliance for SCM was that some of the contracts were extended or modified without the approval of a properly delegated official as required by the relevant sections. This relates to extensions that were beyond the 15%, and Treasury approval was not required, was not requested as required in terms of instruction note 3. Subsequent to this, we have now the SCM policy has been updated to improve the controls in terms of the extension of contracts. The organization has updated its delegations to indicate the correct delegations for contract extensions as well, to ensure there's no misunderstanding in terms of who should approve the extensions. The head of SCM regularly performs reviews of the contract register, and notifications on expiring contracts are also sent to all users 8 months in advance to ensure that the extensions are then done timelessly and in accordance with the regulations as well. So in terms of the finding that was raised, we've now addressed the concerns and the issues that were relating to the findings. In terms of Resolution 127, internal control deficiencies, these related to the findings that were raised in 125 and 126, and they have been addressed in line with the findings that have been raised, where the internal control deficiencies have been raised and identified and have been responded to, as I've explained with regards to 125 and 126. Revenue management 128, in terms of findings, in terms of the 21-22 financial year, our audit on compliance for revenue management, there were no findings. This was a finding that was raised in the 2020-21 year, and the actions and implementation has taken place, where the finding related to deaths that were sitting on the front office ledgers at the resorts. So in terms of the implementation and plans that were put in place, this has then been actioned. In terms of the transactions and where all historical debts, we have written those off. We've now implemented better controls at the resorts, where when visitors are leaving, they need to stamp at the reception to ensure that they have paid. And when they get to the gates, the guards will then check that has been stamped as well. And in terms of the debtors sitting at the front office ledgers, it is now part of performance contracts of the relevant staff as well. So we've implemented that, and in the 21-22 year, this finding had then gone away. It wasn't a repeat finding. The corrective action, we've then included the addition to the findings also in terms of updating the new travel trade policies. As I've indicated, the guests leaving the resort are now required to stamp the passes. The gates have been sensitized that guests should not leave without having the stamp to indicate that they have paid before they've left. Performance contracts for resort managers now include the reduction of the FO ledger accounts as part of their performance area as well. In terms of Resolution 129, irregular expenditure, and the 53.60 million that was sitting in 2021-22, I think that's just a typo. The irregular expenditure that makes up that balance is a majority of it is historical. And we have split that up into the years to make it easier in terms of getting condonation. So in terms of the 2017-18 to 2019-20, this amounted to 19.2 million. This is currently sitting with Provincial Treasury in terms of the condonation process. We've provided information that was required by them in terms of additional information, and we currently are awaiting Provincial Treasury to come back to us in terms of the condonation process. All the relevant documentation has been submitted to them. With regards to 2012-13 to 2015-16, those transactions amounted to 36.3 million. That currently is in finalization in terms of consequence management, with the Employee Relations Office and legal then finalizing that. There are letters that are going out to staff in terms of the consequence management. And the estimated completion date was set at 31st March, but now it's basically being final. The letters are now being finalized to be handed to staff, and that should be concluded by the end of this month. In terms of 2020-21, the total value of those transactions amounted to 4.2 million. Currently, the investigation is at the point where staff involved in causing of irregular expenditure are providing representations, and we're currently finalizing that as well. And that's with 21-22 as well in terms of the irregular expenditure for last year. In terms of the condonation, as explained, the year that's sitting with Provincial Treasury, currently it's with all the information has been provided. I think at the time of this document, it was saying there was additional information with regards to value for money to be provided to Provincial Treasury. This has been provided to them, and they're currently working with the information that has been submitted. With the other years, as soon as the process is then concluded in terms of investigations and consequence management, we will then submit to Provincial Treasury for condonation as well. I think in terms of the resolution, there was measures related to local content. This was raised in the prior year. In 21-22, there were no findings with regards to local content. There was a finding in terms of local content for the 2020-21 financial year. In terms of the filling of critical posts, I think the response is there. I would take it as read in terms of the numbers. So 115. The total management positions from the 115 was 16. There were 12 in the D band and 4 in the E band. As of February 2023, 10 D band positions have been filled, and one is at an appointment stage, and resort manager position is currently in progress. Actually, as of March, the updated is that all the positions have been filled as at March. That's subsequent to this document being submitted. In terms of the senior legal advisor, the appointment was in Feb 2023, and the new senior legal advisor has now started at his. So we now have a new senior legal advisor. With regards to the CFO appointment, there's a slight delay in this. The appointment will now be finalized in last month, 2023. With regards to the senior security manager interviews, these took place on the 15th of March, and we're currently awaiting the final vetting report with regards to the senior manager. In terms of human resource management matters, in terms of SMS members with regards to compliance, in terms of signing of performance agreements, 100% have been signed, 100% have been vetted. Declaration of interest and disclosures have been done by 100% of staff. And in terms of qualifications, all qualifications have been vetted 100%. In terms of vacancies of senior management and critical positions, Transversal Resolution 220. The table then indicates the current status in terms of the 115 positions that were approved. In terms of the A band unskilled, we had 12 positions. The number of positions as per the slide was 4. The latest update is that we now have 9 that have been filled, and in progress it is 3. In terms of semi-skilled, it was 67. 29 have been filled, so a slight update from the numbers that are on the slide when it was provided. So the current update is 29, and 38 are in progress. Under C-band supervisory, it was 20 and 13 have been filled as an update, and 7 are in progress at the moment. D-band management, so there's 12 and 11 positions have been filled, with 1 currently in progress. In terms of senior management, there were 4 positions. 1 has been filled, and the balance are in progress as indicated with the CFO position and the legal which has been filled. In terms of the totals, you have 115 positions, of which 63 have been filled, so update from the 53 that was submitted, and the balance 52 are in progress at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Colleagues, let me now open the floor to you for your questions, comments, anything. Sorry, before I do that, Chairperson of the board is here. Do you wish to add something? Make any comments?
Thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable members. Good morning, and may I take this opportunity to thank the invitation to attend the first meeting on behalf of the board of SCOPA. I just want quickly to indicate that when the board was appointed last year, 2022 in June, one of the immediate tasks was to ensure that there's stability in the entity, both in the administration as well as the board itself. And I'm happy to indicate that we are seeing good signs, strong signs of stability in the entity, which then give us an indication or hope that a lot of issues that have been raised will be addressed, and some of them should be eliminated. The board took a hands-on approach, and all the issues that have been reported on, the board is actually dealing with them through its committees and the board itself. So we want to make an undertaking that the board, as well as the administration, will have to make sure that SCOPA will not have to have so many resolutions around the entity. Some of them can be dealt with. And I must indicate that as a board, we are making ourselves available to the committee at any time when there are issues but we don't want to burden SCOPA with a lot of issues that could be easily dealt with by the board and the entity itself. So can I stop here? But I want to indicate that we are seeing good signs of stability and giving us that focus will be made or given to what matters most, which is service delivery and stabilizing the entity. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Board. And I'm sure that under your leadership, this entity, which has been a very troubled entity, will move forward. I think one of the issues, colleagues, that we have really been pulling our hair out about is the vacancy rate, particularly in the critical vacant posts. And as we all know, the CFO was acting, and there's been numerous changes in terms of the accounting authority, etc. These all create instability. The other concerns that we did have were around the conditions of the various resorts that fell under Ismvelo. And in order for this entity to generate revenue, part of it would have been boosted, the revenue generation, by having good quality facilities, etc. But let me just take comments or questions from the colleagues first. I can see the hand of Honorable Nkosi. I don't see any other hand, so let's hand over to you, Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greeting to the Chairperson of the board and the whole entity leadership. There are issues that I want to clarify for me so that I am at peace. The first one is in relation to the bill that is talking to the rationalization process. I wanted to find out exactly as to when it is going to reach the legislature, because we have been told about this more than 3 years ago. That's why I'm asking for a specific question, because really this rationalization process, when it is left unattended, as it is the case for now, and then I think that it is impacting negatively to the performance of the entities. That's the first question. The second question is in relation to the commercialization strategy, which has got an impact on revenue collection. I want to find out if the entity will come up with the firm date as to when that commercialization strategy will be completed. That's the second question. The third question is in relation to the state of the facilities, as the chairperson has raised it. Just want to find out if there could be confirmation that all facilities are attractive enough in order to attract the people who want to visit them. I'm specific on the one that I visited a few months ago, the one in Goche. I can't remember its name, but that's why in Lowsbeck, where I was born. I'm interested on that one because it was in a very, very bad state. I wanted to find out on that one. Then the last one is a comment around the question of irregular expenditure. I would want to find out from the entity as to whether the submissions that have been made to the provincial treasury are accompanied with strong consequence management, where responsible officials who incurred the irregular expenditure are identified and dealt with according to the expectation of the Public Finance Management Act. If I could be clarified on those, I will be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honorable Nkosi. I'm not seeing any. Okay, Mike Tao, I see your hand.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, if I could just follow up on what Mr. Nkosi's just said. We heard earlier on about the steps being taken to attract visitors, the PR exercises. I'm wondering, Chair, with these steps, the success in terms of the extent to which we are able to fill our camps, particularly with the COVID period that we've just been through, and if not, what level of occupancy does the board actually draw up its budget on? They budget on a basis of full occupancy or 80%. You know, Chair, this is probably one of our most valuable national assets, and I think it behoves all of us to make sure that it runs very well and it's a very attractive destination for people. But are we able to, or are we now reaching a stage where we can look to full occupancy? Thank you. Chair, just as a matter of interest, talking full occupancy, I tried the other day to book at the Galagadi Gemsbok Park. You've got to book a year and a half in advance to get anywhere there. Now, they're obviously doing something right. Thank you.
Okay, so I think, you know, Chairperson and officials, you can see that where things are being done right, they yield results, and this is important. I think one of the things that I wanted to raise is that there's a lot of competition from the private sector in relation to the facilities, accommodation, etc. So in order to attract them, you really have to up the standard. But having said that, I must also make the point that there was a report this week, just prior to the Easter vacation, that in terms of tourism in KZN, there has been a big pickup, particularly from the domestic market, and the most popular region is the Umkhanyakude region. So, and I mean that is where there are quite a few of the facilities of Ezemvelo. So clearly, the domestic market is seeing this, and it's something that should be looked at. Having said that, I just also want to say that this issue of procurement and supply chain management and non-compliance that has resulted in, a large amount of irregular expenditure is something that has been with the entity for a long time. And I think the chairperson, has pointed out that you all are taking steps to deal with it. So I hope that this is done. But in the 2021 irregular expenditure, right, some of the issues, apart from the completion of SBD forms, 4 forms which deal with the conflict of interest, right, is the abuse of the emergency provisions where there are no emergencies, as has been stated here in relation to gas leaks, etc. The second one that, chairperson of the board, I think we must take extremely seriously is the issue of local production and content, which is something that is designed to facilitate the entrance into the market of, particularly historically excluded enterprises and businesses from the black community, of black people. And when this provision, which is a perfectly legal provision, these regulations relating to local production and content are violated, there has to be some action taken against those who don't comply with them. I note that there are disciplinary actions and proceedings underway, and we are told that the estimated completion of the process is the 30th of June 2023. So I will ask our staff to note that so that we can follow up on it. And then the 21-22 irregular expenditure is still at a planning stage, but we were told in the response execution will be implemented in February 2023 with completion at March 2023. So can we have an update on that as well? Thank you. I'm handing over to the entity to respond.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and let's appreciate all the comments and the questions from the members. I will begin by providing responses and then ask relevant executives to also respond to some of the questions. Maybe starting by questions from Honorable Nkosi Udlangamandla. In terms of the timeframes for the bill submission, that process, as he is aware, it's actually driven by the shareholder department, Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. And I think they will be best placed to actually give the exact time frame for that. But I must indicate that because of the human-wildlife conflict policy that we were directed to work on, and as Emvelo, when the board approved that policy, they made a proviso that let's actually engage with the provincial treasurer in terms of the execution of that policy, of which we did. Provincial treasurer made a very valid point into saying if that policy is going to include you establishing a compensation fund and collecting levies from the private game reserves, that needs to be part of your own founding legislation. And as a result of that, we have pleaded with ATIA to allow us to include that chapter in the bill that, according to our information, they had completed as per the report that is presented here. They were ready to submit to cabinet and then to the legislature. But then I think we've indicated that from our side, by the end of this month, we will have provided all the information because we've finalized the policy. So it's just now translating it to the bill. And then moving to the next question around the commercialization strategy. I'm pleased to indicate here that we have actually made some quite good progress on it. The board of Emvelo has approved the commercialization policy, and the commercialization strategy has actually been finalized, but that one, it's still at the level of the executive. What we asked for, we wanted the strategy to have a clear implementation plans with timeframes and budget. And this strategy, in terms of the timelines, I can assure the committee members that it will be finalized by end of May 2023. And then we need to undertake the extensive consultations of this strategy with all relevant people, which is what we'll be doing. So that is the time frame that we have. We've identified projects that we want to put out for commercialization and so forth. And then now we need to process it for consultation after our board has looked into it and endorsed the strategy. Then in terms of the state of the facilities, I'll be requesting Mr. Dlulane and Mr. Makwala to respond about the specific one in Ingoje, I think in Vryheid. But I must indicate here that the approach that we have adopted as the entity is to say, with the limited resources that we have as an entity, it will help for us to prioritize in terms of maintenance and upgrading of these facilities. What we have done, we've identified what we have called the top 6 resorts. This is informed by the revenue that they generate for the organization. And those ones we have said will plow more resources in terms of them to get them to the best state. And already now the plan is underway in terms of those. Which ones are those? We are talking about the Hilltop, we are talking about Impila, we are talking about Midma, we are talking about Didima, we are talking about Tendele, and we are talking about Giant Castle. But it's not to mean that we are not going to be doing the basic infrastructure upgrade on the ones that I've not mentioned. But we have said the lion's share of our budget will be going to those with the long-term view that once those are able to generate more money, we'll be able to divert to others. And also we have accompanied this with the fundraising strategy where we are approaching quite a number of people in the private sector and also in government to assist us with some of these upgrades, because from the fiscus we are not able to get sufficient support to address those. But the colleagues will talk about the specific one. In terms of the submissions that are going to Provincial Treasurer, Mr. Muller is going to respond to that, but I can assure you, Chair, as you will have seen in our report, I think Ezemvelo is one entity that has not shied away from taking consequence management. You will see by the number of staff that have been dismissed, the number of staff that have been suspended, and the number of staff that have actually received final written warnings and written warnings in particular. So I can assure that is the case. In fact, that is the requirement from Provincial Treasurer for you to indicate the consequence management and whether there's been value for money. So we are definitely following that up. Moving to the question by Mr. Tai in terms of the steps to attract visitors, I must indicate that one of the things that the board is tracking when they approve our marketing plans and strategies is to check if that is translating to our accommodation then being fully booked. So what we've been tracking with most of these marketing events, like if I may make one example, at Didima, we went with Ukhozi and Radio 2000 as part of promoting it. On the last day of the event, Ukhozi were announcing that the venue was fully booked for the next 3 months as a result of that. So with most of the activities that we are doing, we are actually tracking if it's translating to the bookings and so forth. And some of our camps, I can assure you that they are also fully booked a year in advance in terms of the bookings going forward. But I'll ask Mr. Makwala to then and Mr. Muller to confirm in terms of the budget and the percentage that it's based on. Lastly, Chair, in terms of the filling of the critical vacancies, we are correct. That's one area that the board has made it very clear that they are tracking on a monthly basis now, not even on a quarterly basis, hence the progress that we are making. But I think it's important to bring to your attention one issue that is starting to concern us, which is also delaying the completion of this process. There are positions that we have earmarked for the benefit of the communities that are neighboring our protected areas, such as your field rangers, your general assistants, your fence liners. With those positions, the moment they are permanent, we found that there is a major uprising. Once you start the process, people demanding, like the fence liners one community just demanded that all the 9 permanent positions should be reserved for them, not other communities, because they don't have more numbers. When we had to stop the process, call all Izinduna and the Makosi for them to help us in terms of filling those. So even themselves, they could not agree. Then they agreed that Letters Envelope, through its process, run the process. But then the community started protesting and removing the fence as a result of that. So those are some of the challenges that we are encountering, especially for these positions that are earmarked for community people. Once they realize that it's permanent, we start really getting much more protest going forward. Can I request then my other colleagues to respond to specific questions, maybe starting with you, Mr. Muller, and then going with others as I've called them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we get that response, I don't know if Mr. Zulu, you want to come in so that when they respond, they could also deal with whatever issue you are raising.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing my hand. Yes, mine is more on governance. I would like to know if the entity has an audit committee. And is there any reason why the chairperson was not invited if there is an existing audit committee which is well constituted, especially because we are dealing with assurance issues, AG as well as IA issues that have been raised? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Zulu. I know that as SCOPA, we did not specifically invite the audit committee or the chairperson at least, and I think in future we will do that. But I'm not sure from the side of the entity or the department what was done. I can't see any other hands, colleagues, so let me then hand over to the entity and the officials and the board, whoever wishes to respond. I think it would be the officials first.
Thank you, Chair. As indicated, CEO said I would go after. In terms of the 2020-21 irregular expenditure, that's currently, as indicated, the date is 30th June 2023 for disciplinary processes to be done. As you would understand, in terms of the process, the first step for any irregular expenditure is that the internal audit then do the investigation in terms of it. They get representations from the colleagues. Based on that, they then recommend. The next step is then for our ER and legal to then go through with the disciplinary and consequence management. Once that's concluded, that then goes to Provincial Treasury in terms of the process for conclusion. I think the CEO went on to the point in terms of disciplinary action that has been taken and consequence management in terms of staff that have been identified in terms of the processes and impacts that it has had on the staff that in terms of the disciplinary process and consequence management for them. So in terms of our budgetary constraints, we're trying to do all of this in-house. So it does take some time as well. In terms of 2020-21, as indicated, the disciplinary process should be concluded by 30th June 2023. And once that is then concluded, that would then go forward to Provincial Treasury. For 21-22, the date did indicate 31st March as the estimated completion by internal audit. However, there's a slight delay. They're currently at the point where the staff involved in the irregular expenditure are providing representations. And then the aim is to finalize that by the end of this month. And then once that is done, the recommendations would then be given to legal and our ER team, HR, to then implement the necessary consequence management in terms of the disciplinary process for those staff. And in terms of Provincial Treasury, all the relevant documentation, I think, in terms of consequence management and value for money is then provided to Provincial Treasury. And then with that, we then deal with any queries that may come back in terms of the condonation for the particular irregular expenditure. I think in terms of the SCM non-compliance, I think a point on local content was raised. The finding was in the prior year. And then we've taken the actions in terms of the local content. And in the 21-22 year, there was no specific finding on local content from the Auditor General as well. Thank you, Chair. I can then hand over to the other colleagues with regards to the commercial services. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe before my colleague, Mr. Makwala, comes through, let me attend to the issue of infrastructure. Chairperson, mainly the questions are coming from Honorable Nkosi with regards to the work that we are doing and the assessments that were done by the Finance Portfolio Committee when our facilities were visited. Chair, I would want to confirm that there is work that we're currently doing. Honorable Nkosi is talking about Itala Game Reserve and in Louwsburg, and the resort is in Chondwe Resort, which was not looking very well because of the main lack of maintenance that lack of maintenance that was evident. Chair and members of the committee, I would like to confirm that as we speak, the road is currently being fixed. We had some challenges with the contractor where we have had to really act tough because unfortunately one of the biggest challenges that we are facing, especially as MVL, and I've checked with other colleagues as well, we seem to be having that challenge in most of the departments, is the quality of workmanship from the service providers that we appoint or the pace that they are working at. So with the John Deere Road, we are currently fixing it. We are expecting it to be finished. We were meant to finish it before the end of last month, and there were extensions that were requested. We are meant to finish it this month. As far as the actual units that are concerned, Chairperson, Honorable Nkosi and members, those that we might have reported to earlier would remember that we had mentioned that there is funds that were made available from National Department to the tune of about 40 million to fix the Njondwe Resort. We have been doing follow-ups. Unfortunately, the pace as well at National Department was not up to what we would have wanted. However, one can confirm that as of the past 2 weeks when we were following up, we were advised that they are actually finalizing the appointment of contractors. All the specifications and the planning were done and finalized by an independent contractor that was appointed, a consultant that was appointed by the department to actually implement that project. So my understanding now is that they are finalizing the appointment of the contractors. According to their plan, they are calling that they are saying that they are appointing contractors for all the projects that they had allocated funding for. So we will continue to actually do follow-ups, but we are optimistic, Chairperson and members, that the processes are now being finalized, which will then mean that the Itala and Game Reserve and Njondwe Resort in particular will have the access road being upgraded, as well as the units actually being attended to. The biggest challenge being the roofs, where there has been a lot of challenges with the patch. We are hopeful that in our endeavors to make sure that we do not get confronted by a similar situation, we'll be in a position to actually get funding from other sources to provide for the heavy tile, which will then make sure that at least the challenges of the maintenance of the thatch roofs will actually be taken away. Similarly to Njondwe, Chairperson and members, as I've mentioned, we are 98% complete to Itendele, where we're also fixing roofs, and we're also doing internal painting and some upgrades to those units. The project is almost complete. We should be completing it this month as well. With the road, we are having some issues with the service provider. We have actually taken legal action. Our legal office is actually taking action against the service providers, both the consultant and the contractor, for the short workmanship that happened there. So those two, those two programs within Itendele are actually currently taking place. Coming to Midma, Chairperson and members, we have started with the road. The contractor was appointed. We experienced some delays in our procurement process because of appeals that came through when we were just about to award the contractor. But I'm glad to advise the committee and members that the contractor of roofing has started. The one for the actual upgrades of the units also had some issues with the local forums. I'm confident now that a solution was found when we actually brought all the stakeholders. So that also was in the process of actually being finalized, where the service providers that were local, who were supposed to take to participate in the 30%, were actually being identified by the structures, or the stakeholders that are relevant in the particular area. We have not only stopped, Chair and members, with only the big five, as the CEO has mentioned. We have also fixed those that are popular, like in Jesuti. We will, if you were to drive it in Jesuti now, Honorable Nkosi, you will, even though it is a gravel road, but it is a road that you can travel in any type of vehicle, even a small vehicle as an Atios or a Polo will actually get easy access to the to the resort. That was made possible by our own internal roads department, which we have revived, and we have bought all the plant that we needed, and we continue as and when a need arises to actually beef up our roads department, so that we do not rely even on our routine maintenance for external service providers, especially after the challenges that we have experienced. We also, Chairperson, are in the process of upgrading some of our facilities, as it was mentioned, but I think it's the Chairperson and one of the members about the attractiveness of our facilities. We are currently in this financial year in the process of upgrading Tendele, the two cottages. In Hilltop, we are actually targeting to upgrade 10 chalets, so that we upgrade their look and feel internally, which will also attract more visitors, but also assist us in our grading initiatives, because we want to go back to at least our 3-star grading as per Grading SA, and the requirements that they gave us, we are actually attending to. We are also fixing the impila, some of the chalets and the tented accommodation. We're in the process of dealing with that. So in essence, Chairperson and members, we are actually doing all we can with the limited resources. And as my colleague, Mr. Muller, has mentioned, we actually have 4% of the budget that is allocated for maintenance, and we're actually making sure that we utilize that primarily to focus on our visitor facilities, so that we benefit on the evident increasing numbers of visitors to our facilities. As the Honorable Chairperson has mentioned, we are actually seeing the increase, but we want to make sure that it is not just only day visitors, but overnight visitors, and that is going to be made possible by the initiatives that we are taking through. Chairperson, I think that will be all that deals with infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dlulane. Colleagues, just the issue of the audit committee, which I think we'll just note that, Mr. Zulu, because really all of us have not, really dealt with that. Ms. Johnson, Lydia. Chairperson. I can see the hand of the chairperson raised.
I'm muted. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members, for the questions that they have raised, the comments they have made. I think we take them seriously, and we want to make sure that we continue as we are already attending to those issues. But I want, just as a matter of emphasizing how serious we take these issues on the state of our eco facilities. The board on its own had to undertake an oversight visit. What we did, because we wanted to see to ourselves the extent of disrepair, if there's disrepair, and what needed to be done, and the attention that needed to be given to those that we feel that our low-hanging fruits, and if we focus on them, we can be able to see a difference in our revenue generation. The board, in 2 days' time, had to divide itself in the group of twos to visit the identified facilities. And it was pleasing that the board understood and they saw it by themselves that what needed to be done, and also to support the type and the amount of budget that will be required. And we believe that that kind of approach of being closer and monitoring will assist us to see difference in own revenue generation. I also want to pick up on the issue how we take serious irregular expenditure. The board is clear on that one. We said to the official, we want to see reduction, even elimination of irregular expenditure around the issue of supply chain itself. But we are happy that we now have a permanent supply chain manager who's really quite hands-on, and we believe that some of the issues that are raised should be eliminated. But I want to say once more, thank you very much for the invitation. We note the issues that have been raised, and we undertake that we will do the best we can to actually deal with those issues together with administration. Thanks.
Thanks, Chairperson. I must say, and I know colleagues will agree with me on this one, we can actually see a change in the entities and the orientation with the new chairpersons, and we want to appreciate that, because we can see that things are starting to take a turn for the better. I think with Ezemvelo, we must make a note that the issue of the going concern is not something we can ignore. And whilst the response is saying that you intend talking to the department, etc., I'm not sure how much of funds you could actually get from the department. So, avenues have to be explored to shore up this entity, because really we don't want to have to forego this entity. It is a public entity, and we'd like it to remain as such, benefiting the people in general. So I think that area is something that we would want to pursue. Colleagues, are there any other issues that you wish to raise? we obviously will be doing follow-ups on the investigations, the filling of the posts, the going entity, and the bill, right? I think with the bill, certainly we must chase the department because that rationalization does also impact on the functioning of both Trucks Board and Ezimvelo. Are we covered, colleagues?
Very much covered, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Then, Chairperson and your team, the Accounting Authority and your team of Ezimvelo, we'd like to thank you very much. It is refreshing to see the chairpersons being hands-on. It makes a difference. Well, it shows that the ship can be steered well. So thank you very, very much. We wish you well, and we will be doing follow-ups by way of written communication, and we'd be expecting written responses. Thank you very much. We can release Ezimvelo now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and all the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Colleagues, our last entity to deal with, and it is actually should not be very long, is Tourism KZN. And this one, I think the main issue has been around the issue of human resources. So, Cabo, are they present with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who do we have with us, Cabo?
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson and the members. My name is Nhlanhla Khumalo. I am the current acting CEO of Tourism KZN. And with me in here, I've got the interim CFO, Mr. Mfanfikile Daza. I must indicate, Chairperson, that I have effectively from November been acting, and Mr. Daza joined the organization in August last year. Amongst the priorities that we had set ourselves is the implementation audit finding by AG and also the resolution of the SCOPA.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Khumalo. And we must thank you for your for your response that you have given to us. Before we proceed with the hearing, can we ask that you and whoever is going to speak take the oath or affirmation to speak the truth? I can see Stembiso Madlala raising a hand as well.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. I'm laughing because there's a spot for me here. The chairperson of the board is here. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome, the chairperson of the board, but we will require the officials to take the oath or affirmation because they are the ones whose necks will be on the block. So let's deal with them, and we will definitely ask for the input of the board as well.
Okay. I, Nhlanhla Khumalo, hereby affirm to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. Mr. Daza should come through and she's going to make the presentation thereafter.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members. Thank you very much. My name is Mfanfikile Daza. I here affirm that I will speak the truth, nothing but the truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you. Let me say that it is 3 transversal resolutions that you'll be responding to. One is around the filling of critical posts. And I think, colleagues, we can already see the concern with this entity because you've got an acting CEO, you've got an acting CFO, and this already, and these obviously are causes for concern. Then we've got a transversal resolution on compliance with HRM matters. That's the table that we asked to be filled. And we've got a resolution on the vacancies in senior management and critical positions. So I think those are the ones that we would want the entity to deal with. They have responded in writing. This response has been emailed to your colleagues for your reference, but we will ask that you flight your responses if possible. And I'm handing over to the entity. Chairperson of the board, if you wish to say something as they are reading themselves, please jump in.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. No, I'll make a comment after the presentation, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, that is fine. Okay, so let's hand over to Mr. Khumalo.
Thanks, Chairperson. Mr. Daza will flight the presentation and go through it.
Okay, fine.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to bring the presentation, Chairperson, to the screen. If Chairperson maybe allow, I just want to check if maybe we are on the same page in terms of the resolution. I just want to confirm. I think on our side we have resolution 130/2022, which was on the compliance with legislation on consequence management. And then we also have resolution 131, which was on the procurement and contract management, which also led to the irregular expenditure of the 2.4 million for 2021-22, as well as another irregular expenditure, which was 8.1 million. And then we also had a resolution 132/2022, which was relating to the provision for doubtful debts, which is a matter that relates to VAT. Our presentation has been prepared in line with these resolution. I just want to confirm, Chairperson, if maybe we are on the same page. I think the ones that Chairperson read were slightly different from what we have on our end.
Those are resolutions that were taken, so you can present them. But we do also have, I think we've, Cabo, you can correct me, I think we also received from the department Annexure C, which gives us the response to the transversals. So we have the specific department resolutions and the transversals. And you can proceed on those grounds, Mr. Khumalo.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. This is our presentation, and I'll go straight to the first matter that was raised, but it hasn't been part of the resolution. This was relating to the predetermined objective on which we're under program 4 for marketing. And this, Chairperson, I would like to state that it was resolved as part of our audit action plan. We did prepare the audit action plan back in October, and we started implementing the action plan immediately. And we started reporting on the progress made on that audit action plan. And this particular matter on the survey was actually resolved and is being monitored going forward. It will be noted on the audit outcome for the current or for the 2022-23 financial year when the audit is completed in terms of the progress. Chairperson, if I move to the next slide. Now, the next slide, Chairperson, is on the procurement and contract management. And here we had an audit finding that was relating to the payments that were made to the service providers, which are referred to as Asegai and Javelin, which exceeded the contract value. And the amount that was involved in that particular audit finding was 5.2 million in total. And it was presented to the provincial treasury requesting the approval for condonation. However, it was not approved because at the time the treasury stated that there was no investigation that was conducted, and there was an investigation that was then conducted after that feedback from the treasury. An investigation was commissioned to look into this matter. However, the investigation took longer than expected. The investigation has been completed as at end of February 2023, and management are in the process of discussing the final report with the investigators, and this will be followed by the implementation of the recommended consequence management. The process of investigation, implementation of consequence management, and application of the condonation will be completed latest by 31st March 2023. Chairperson, I must indicate that when we submitted this report for the initial date of the presentation, which was scheduled for the 8th, we were still engaging with the investigators, being the internal auditors, in this matter, because as they had completed the investigation after a thorough work was done on the investigation itself, especially right at the beginning of Q4 in January, where we provided a lot of information to the investigators in order for them to complete the investigation. We have experienced some sort of a challenge in terms of getting the actual finalized investigation report. And this continued up until the end of the month, which is March, which was actually last week. We've been engaging with the internal auditors for them to table the final report so that we can implement the consequence management. However, there has been a struggle, but we are continuing engaging with them so that we can get this final report. But the field work was completed. So the management will just continue to engage and try to fast track the process of having the report tabled so that we can then start the process of implementing the consequence management. Chairperson, if I move to the next slide, this one, Chairperson, talks to the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which totaled to 592,000. And particularly here, Chairperson, we had an amount of 477,000 that was reported as not investigated by the entity during the 2021-2022 financial year. Chairperson, on the other part, which is 115,000, the investigation was done, and that matter was reported to the Loss Control Committee, which is an internal committee that we have within TKZN. And the recommendation that was received from the committee was that a written warning should be issued in terms of that fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And this was after considering the reasons that were tabled by the officials that were cited as the one who caused that fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And the other part, which is now the 477, Chairperson, is we are still finalizing the internal investigation in terms of that, but I can inform the committee that this is mainly an amount that is coming from the late payment of SARS, mainly the PAYE, the UIF, and SDR. And what was incurred as irregular expenditure there was the interest on the late payment as well as the interest. And we have obtained some breakdown in terms of what makes up that. This actually comes from 2016-2017 financial year, and part of it was incurred in 2017-2018 financial year. And we're hoping to finalize this before end of April. Our intention was to have it finalized before end of March, actually, but due to some challenges in terms of pulling out the records, that process, Chairperson, has delayed. But we can promise the committee that during this quarter, being quarter one, before end of the month, we should be able to finalize this and then get it cleared according to the Treasury regulations. Chairperson, the next one also is still part of the irregular expenditure. We have on the previous slide where I reported on the 5.2 million. This is a 3 million also where we have incurred irregular expenditure. The total of this is actually about it comes to about 8 million, as it is also reflected on the resolution itself. This is also is still is part of the investigation. Is part of the investigation that we are currently finalizing, and we have also done our own investigation besides the one that is being conducted by the internal auditors. Our own internal, because the internal auditors were specifically looking at a specific amount, but we have done a further investigation in terms of making sure that the total irregular expenditure that we still have is a balance on our financial statement is fully investigated. And also this, Chairperson, we can confirm that our intention is to complete it early in quarter one. And we're hopeful that by end of the month, end of April, we should be done with this and take the necessary steps as required by the Treasury regulation. While I'm at this point, Chairperson, I would like to inform the committee that as per our records, as at end of the fourth quarter or end of the financial year, we have not reported any new irregular expenditure or fruitless and wasteful expenditure. But we also take note that this is still before the finalization of our draft financial statement, as well as the AG audit that will be taking place during this quarter, Chairperson. Chairperson, if I take you to the next slide where we also talk to the SCM matters as well, in terms of the deviations where it was cited that there were no proper reason provided in our deviations that were compiled during the year. Management has made an undertaking to ensure that reasons for deviation are well articulated and demonstrated on the deviation document before it is approved. And this is what is happening. This is what has been happening, Chairperson, during the year. That our deviations through the approval process, we make sure that we do have detailed and reasons in terms of why we are deviating from our SCM processes, and in order to address what was raised by the Auditor General. And we were able to confirm this as early as August in terms of this being implemented as part of our action. Chairperson, during the audit of the supply chain management, it was noted that the contract register received from management of the entity was not properly maintained in terms of the details of the contract. And it was cited that this could result in the recording of contracts being incomplete and result in budget overpayment or overspent. Chairperson, we can confirm that all contracts are updated monthly and there is ongoing monitoring process of the contract register. This deals with the issue of the compliance in terms of the contract management. There has been an updated register that we we keep updating on monthly or quarterly basis, and we have also started a process of presenting this register at our structures like the EXCO, for example, where we look at the duration of the contract, which one is coming to an end, so that we can then plan ahead in terms of our tender processes where we need to go out on tender. Chairperson, if I can move to the next slide. Also, this was not on the resolution, but this was an internal control issue that was raised about the attendance register, and in terms of which is an issue that came as a result of the people working remotely. And what we have done, we have developed a remote working policy, Chairperson, which it has gone through our governance structures up to the board, but it was not yet approved, as there were some improvement that the board had requested the management to put through that particular document. We are hoping to have it finalized or sent or sign off by the board during Q1, as we have implemented all the recommendations that came from the board and board committees in terms of this policy. We were hoping to have it finalized during the fourth quarter, Chairperson, but due to some logistic challenges, we were not able to do so. But during the Q1, we are hopeful that we will be able to have this particular policy finalized. Chairperson, the next matter is on the VAT. Basically, we had an issue where we had a VAT that was raised as a debtor based on the VAT input and VAT output, while we were still having those transactions that were VATable at the time. And we had an amount of 4.9 million. But however, this amount was fully impaired and recorded as a doubtful debt, even in the 2021-2022 financial year. But however, the matter could not be finally closed because what we needed to do is basically to deregister as VAT vendor so that we can clear that. But also there was an investigation that needed to be done to confirm, because the TKZN's position at the time was that the amount was recoverable from SARS. However, after interrogating a number of documents and records during the current financial year, which is 2021, which is 2022, 2023, we've discovered that we are not able to pull out any evidence that support the recoverability of this 4.9 million. And we have also agreed that this amount is irrecoverable and we need to clear it. And then we have we have consulted SARS in terms of getting this amount cleared. And the response there was a back and forth in terms of what needed to be done. We set up some appointments and we were not able to get assistance from SARS up until we were then advised that the accounting officer will need to, because the other issue that we discovered was that in terms of registration within SARS, the accounting officer that we still have is registered is actually a former employee, a person who was a CEO who has now left. So we needed the current CEO to actually visit SARS physically and then change and then get the details changed, and then we can then finalize the deregistration. We do acknowledge, Chairperson, that it has taken a little bit longer than we would like to, but we are at the final stages of this particular deregistration, and we're hopeful that before end of the month of April, this matter will be fully dealt with. The account will be cleared, as we have identified the way forward in terms of what needs to be done. Chairperson, I have arrived at the end of our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khumalo. Colleagues, this one was not mailed to us, but the issues have been covered in detail. So I'm going to open it up to you for any questions or comments. I must say again, colleagues, as you will see, the issue of irregular expenditure and consequence management raises its head. The issue of procurement and contract management and non-adherence to legislation is there, and the issue of critical vacant posts. Honorable Nkosi, I see your hand.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I want to raise only 3 issues which will assist the entity going forward so that they don't experience the same problems. The first one is around the question of the investigation immediately of anything that is not in line with the pieces of legislation. In this case, we are speaking specifically on the irregular expenditure and the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. What then would need to advise the entity, because there are new leaders there, is that we would want to see the quick investigation of whatever irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure that has been incurred. And that investigation will be much easier if records are kept on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly and quarterly basis. I believe that would assist a lot. That is the first thing that I want to talk about. And then talking about these things called irregular expenditure and all those things, I feel that it is outdated now. If one bears in mind that the PFMA is 22 years old and it was enacted in 1999, for us not to comply with the Public Finance Management Act, it dents the image of us who are employed in government. That's the second point that I wanted to raise. The last one is that when you do quick investigation, and you must be in a position to ensure that consequence management, which is strong enough, is applied so that the lesson for the future is learned by officials in government. Because I know in some cases of the irregular expenditure condonation by the provincial treasury, it also counts that consequence management was applied and applied effectively. So these are the 3 comments that I wanted Chairperson to make for the new leaders of this entity to consider going forward.
Thanks, Honorable Nkosi. Mr. Zulu from the Provincial Audit and Risk Committee.
Thanks, Chair. My question will sound like it's a scratch record, but I want to be assured. I did ask in the previous entity if the structures of governance, I will ask it differently now. The structures of governance are well constituted, meaning do you have an audit committee as an entity that is functional, that is able to look at these findings and ensure that the real root cause of these findings are attended to, not only what the AG has raised as a root cause. That's a question I want to know. But coming to the 22 years of MFMA raised by Mr. Nkosi, it's an interesting one. I'm just sharing with the members of SCOPA to say when we saw what we saw as being raised by National Treasury with regards to ESCOM, some of us started to raise eyebrows because even these entities will start to say to us, we could not adhere to all the regulations because we had these challenges and that challenge. So as members of parliament, please consider it very seriously, any relaxation of such legislations, because we expect people to now be ready to deal with any irregular expenditure in wasteful and fruitless, all the EFW that we have in organizations. They are critical and they are helping us to understand and make the departments accountable. to what they are expected to do with the government money. Thank you.
Much, Mr. Zulu, for those comments. I think it's important. We'll take the feedback about whether the governance structure, particularly the audit committee, is in place for this entity. I think one of the issues we didn't raise, but is this entity also not part of a rationalization process? And in that case, any idea as to when this rationalization will be done, and perhaps some feedback on its impact in terms of your functioning? I don't see any other hands, so let me hand over.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me provide feedback on the comments and questions that have been made. We accept the counsel from the members in terms of speeding up investigations before it is too late, and also keeping proper records of every transactions that may have happened during a particular period of time. In fact, we have already put measures in place in terms of tracking the instances of irregular expenditure, the instances of deviations from supply chain processes, those including also the register of contracts that has been put in place. We report monthly to the Executive Management Committee on the progress on the number of areas that are a reason for irregular expenditure. We will keep on regular basis doing so, and we shall ensure that in instances where new instances of irregular expenditure are coming up, we will follow them through and investigate them and act on the consequence management. So the second question is in relation to the governance structures. We do have a board in place, and also we do have the Audit and Risk Committee. The action plan, the audit action plan, is the implementation of the audit action plan is presented on quarterly basis to the Audit and Risk Committee, and they are appraised of the progress that we are making and the issues that we have at hand. So I just want to confirm that indeed, as part and parcel of governance, we do have in place the Audit and Risk Committee within the structures of the board. On the issue of rationalization, in fact, the significant progress has been made in the number of areas and in relation to the preparatory work. The major issue that we are currently working on is the bill. The bill has been sent out for public comments, and that has been concluded. So it should be taken over to the executive. That's the confirmation that we have received from the engagements with the shareholder. So ideally, once the bill has been passed, we should be able to effectively proceed with the we should be able to proceed with the actual implementation of the rationalization process. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Khumalo. Does anybody wish to add anything here? I think some of these issues, you know, the rationalization process, colleagues, we're going to have to take a resolution on it because it is taking very long. I think it's what, over three to 5 years now, Honorable Nkosi, you can refresh my memory on it. But
it's more than 5 years.
More than 5 years, yes. And it does have a negative impact on the functioning of entities. We've seen that even the reluctance to, make appointments or for people even to apply for positions because you don't know if that position is going to be there in the new entity. So I think we'll have to deal with that. Then the issue of the audit committee, we're glad to hear that there is one. We'll ensure that we invite a rep to be part of your delegation when you call you again, but you must do the same. I think that would be important as well. And the points that Honourable Nkosi made, that in terms of irregular expenditure, if in terms of legislation it's investigated within 30 days, you won't have the backlog about finding records and records going astray and people leaving, etc. So I think that needs to be addressed. But at the same time, the historic irregular expenditure has to be cleared, right? Either condoned, written off, whatever, but in each case, investigated, motivated, and then the matter addressed. Otherwise, things will fall between the cracks. And of course, the issue of procurement and contract management, which is something that has to be addressed as well. But I want to link it with, vacancies and other stuff. And I think these all impact negatively. So, colleagues, are there any issues further that you wish to raise? We obviously will be taking all of these things and putting them into resolutions. There were the 3 transversals, which have to some extent been covered here as well in the presentations. So, I'm just trying to call them up. Okay, so the filling of critical posts. The department had received approval for 3 posts, 2 regional managers and a manager of business relations and development in June 2022. But obviously the process is slow because the recruitment for the regional managers from June 2022 is at appointment stage. That's positive. But the recruitment process for the manager of business relations and development is on hold due to the rationalization issues. You see, this is my point. Then compliance with HRM matters. And then we go to performance agreements were signed and filed, so that's fine. And they submitted their employees to background checks, verification, etc. And then the next one was positions in senior management and critical positions vacant for more than 12 months, vacant positions in senior management not advertised within 6 months, and delays in filling of critical posts have been attributed to the approval process involving Treasury and Office of the Premier. They say that the appointment of an interim CFO was finalized in August 2022, and the interim CFO commenced duty on 1 September 2022. So still the interim. You see, these are the issues that confront the entity. And with the best intention in the world, there's also an acting CEO. So obviously, the entity is disadvantaged. So those were the transversals which tie in with some of the issues that have been raised here. Are there any other issues, colleagues, that you wish to raise? Okay. So in terms of the entity then, we'd like to thank you, the chairperson who is present, as well as the acting CEO and the acting CFO and others. We hope that the next time things will look better. I think we have to push the finalization of those goals because that will contribute as well. And there are other matters that we will follow up by way of written communication to you. For example, the investigations into the contract that exceeded the amount paid, which exceeded the contract value to Assegai and Javelin. We will follow up on that one as well. Mr. Daza, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. I just wanted to add on what Mr. Khumalo was saying in terms of the challenges. I think the issue of the post, difficulties in terms of filling the post, it is there. It is a challenge as a result of the rationalization. We are hoping that as soon as the rationalization is finalized, we will be out of that particular risk. So it is something that is there. And also on the issue of the cost, we have realized that it is quite difficult to find financial resources to fund some of the activities that are specifically relating to rationalization. And one of the measures that we have now also brought forward as a resolution is was to look at the savings. For example, we had a project of acquiring a new IT system for the new entity. And we didn't have funds for that. And we then said we will look at the savings, if we have savings, and such savings can then be utilized for such. And also we've got tender process in terms of our office building. And also there we decided that how to fund those processes while the entity has not yet been established is to look at the savings of the two entities being TKZN as well as Film Commission. If we have savings, those is what will help us in terms of the rationalization. So because we don't have a specific budget that is there for rationalization, so it's a question of looking for those funds, of which at the moment our sources is mainly on the savings. Chairperson, those are just two areas that I wanted to add on what has been already stated. Thank you, in terms of the challenges with the rationalization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daza. I think, the rationalization is just a major issue, and I think, colleagues, we are going to have to push this thing, Honorable Nkosi, you through finance, and obviously us through SCOPA. Mr. Zulu, I see your hand up.
Sorry for taking me back. I just want to check from the entity. I wanted to ask this question to almost all of them. We are at the end of the financial year. Are the entities okay with the progress in terms of developing their annual financial reports and the performance reports that is required by AG by the 31st of May, noting that normally April is a short month, just to get that assurance so that at least we don't get the repeat findings. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Zulu. Can you just respond to that, please? Are you on track? Yes.
Yes, we should be able to submit our financial statements and our annual performance plans on time, because we are currently working hard on that together with the CFO. That's the status where we are currently. The CFO will therefore add in terms of the preparatory work that has been done.
Now, I think that is fine. If you are telling us that you're on track, what would have to happen is that the department would have to work with you to ensure that that is done. But you're telling us you're on track. And we are now at the beginning of April. So it's a short month, as Mr. Zulu has pointed out. And you've got May, right? But obviously not the 31st of May. That's your deadline. You ought to be ready some week or weeks before. All right. No, we'll hold it at that for now. Okay. So colleagues, if there are no other issues, right, I think we've raised the matters that came up in the AG's report and the response. We've noted the responses. We will follow up with some of them. We can see again the impact of rationalization. Again, colleagues, you can see the trend. Irregular expenditure, delayed investigations, not condoned, carrying on, creating more problems, procurement and contract management, vacancies, unfilled, creating a pressure on entities, and the impact of rationalization. These seem to be like a common thread with many of the entities that we have been meeting. So we will, as SCOPA, have to take appropriate decisions and resolutions in this regard. Okay, so with that, let me thank the entity and the board of it, the officials and the board of the entity of Tourism KZN. Thank you very much for attending this hearing and your responses. Let me also thank the Office of the Auditor General, the Provincial Audit and Risk Committee, Provincial Treasury, members of SCOPA, of course, officials from the legislature, and if there were members of our STIR Portfolio Committee of Economic Development and Tourism, thank you as well. Colleagues, this hearing is now closed. I want to just remind members that the SCOPA debate is on the 18th of May, and our resolutions report will obviously be ready much before then, and we will have to meet to discuss and adopt it. Thank you very much, colleagues. Meeting is closed.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Honorable Nkosi.